Chapter 589. It was normal to hear someone call his name, but the problem was that this was not an instant message, nor was it a smart call. It was an email left behind by the grassroots empire at the end of the band program. In other words, this was a voice message left behind by the grassroots empire when they were banned. Could he have predicted that Xingia would come here many years later, unlocking the band program? This was the most frightening thing. In this claustrophobic space that was emitting a strange green light, the androgynous voice seemed to know what everyone was thinking. It spoke again. Among all the people I know, if there is one person who could decipher my barriers on the rainforest planet in outer space, I believe that person must be you, Xingia, codename Hollowtooth. Xingia did not answer. He was completely shocked. The grassroots empire continued. You must be very curious. What exactly did I seal here? Why did I tell you to come here? Let us ignore these questions for now. Let me ask you a few questions. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Why did you struggle all the way here? Xingia could feel his palms sweating. He suddenly discovered that the grassroots empire actually knew everything about him. The grassroots empire's voice was so calm that there was no trace of emotion. I have been to many places in this vast universe. I know that you want to go back to your original world. I even know that you bear a very important mission. You are the chosen one. Am I right? This time, not only was Xingia shocked, even Ding Meng was shocked. Was this grassroots empire a human or a ghost? He even knew about the chosen one, and he even said that he was wandering the universe. Was he still human? Or could it be that the grassroots empires were gods in the underworld? The chosen one is not the will of the holy tree. It comes from a god-level civilization in the main star cluster of the universe. Its name is the Mao-Xing civilization. This civilization not only knows about the past, but also the future. If my guess is correct, Xingia, you being able to unlock the band proves that the holy spirit of the rainforest planet has produced the chosen one. The traces of the Mao-Xing civilization have also set foot here. This is the inevitable result. This time, even Little Rascal was shocked. Damn, this grassroots empire knows a lot. Ding Meng asked in surprise. The sacred tree is also a part of the Mao-Xing civilization? Little Rascal nodded affirmatively. Yes, it is indeed a major branch of our Mao-Xing civilization, but it is very weak. Ding Meng was speechless. If the mysterious power of the holy tree was weak, then what was strong? Grassroots empire continued. Do you know about Pandora's box? Once it's open, disaster, sin, and pain will all be released, but at the same time, hope, beauty, and bliss will also appear. I'm giving you this opportunity now. What will you choose? If Ding Meng was given this multiple choice question, Ding Meng would choose to close it without any hesitation. In his many adventures, he had long understood that curiosity was the bane of life. However, Grassroots Empire was now asking for Xingia's opinion, so Xingia remained silent and did not answer. Grassroots Empire's voice suddenly became emotional. It sighed and said, "Actually, I don't need to ask you, because I know that once you reach this step, you will definitely open this seal. You are too arrogant, but this is not a bad trait for a red guest. On the contrary, it often allows you to fight back in desperate situations and go against the flow. I know you have a lot of questions, but unfortunately, I can't answer them all for you. I can only answer 3 points for you." Xingia had been listening the whole time. He was the only one who could understand these words now. Grassroots Empire continued. First, once you open this seal, you must be mentally prepared. You will face an unprecedentedly powerful evildoer. Whether it is a friend or a foe is not something you or I can predict. In the future, it will be filled with countless variables. Second, once you open it, you will have hope of returning. However, you may not be fated to encounter this opportunity. Here, let me give you a piece of advice. The past is the past, and you can't change it. You can't change it, and you can't change it. The saying that man can conquer nature is a lie. These words were extremely difficult to understand. Xingia could only firmly remember them. Grassroots Empire suddenly let out a sigh. I know you have one last question. Why should I give you a chance to choose whether to open it or not? It is not because of your extraordinary talent. If you must find a reason, it is that I sympathize with you, because I am the same as you. The best days of my life are very short. From then on, you will never have a life that belongs to you. I hope that one day I can see you in reality, but I think that kind of opportunity may never come. Goodbye, XING. As soon as the voice fell, the green grass logo on the big screens began to dim, like a grassland slowly withering. It turned from green to yellow at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, all the logos disappeared, and the seal command was completely lifted. OM, 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 OM. The light in the control room returned to normal. Julie could not help but ask, "Has the seal been lifted?" XINGS sighed. "It has been lifted." Julie said sincerely, "Thank you so much, Mr. XN. You don't have to thank me." XING's expression was disappointed. "It was not lifted by me." Julie was stunned again. XINGS sighed. "No one can lift the seal he set. Not even me." Julie said, "But the seal has been lifted?" XING's gaze was fixed on the screen. That is because Grassroots Empire had already predicted what would happen today, so he took the initiative to lift the seal. Perhaps this is fate. He rarely had such feelings, and he had never believed in words like fate. However, after what he had seen and heard today, he started to believe in it. Things in this world had always been like this. It was like a seed. Once you sowed it, it would take root and sprout. Sooner or later, it would blossom and bear fruit. As for whether this fruit would be a good or a bad one, it was unknown. XING was still thinking when all the screens in the control room suddenly rose. The system's voice spontaneously sounded at this time. The New World system has been activated. Switching to the Cortex program. Self-repair preparation complete. System charging. After a series of notifications, Susia seemed to have realized something. What did we activate? In fact, everyone had already noticed that a countdown had appeared on the big screen in the center. 23, 59, 48, 23, 59, 47, 23, 59, 46, 23, 59, 45. Under normal circumstances, the countdown in the control room would only last for a few minutes, with the longer ones lasting up to 15 minutes, or even 30 minutes at most. But now, it was showing 24 hours, which meant that they would need to spend a lot of time making the final preparations. This was probably not a good thing. Ding Ming suddenly sensed an extremely faint energy fluctuation, which disappeared in an instant. This aura was very familiar. Xiao AI said decisively, "It's the Rat King's aura." Little Rascal was puzzled. This place is 400 kilometers away from the northern outpost, and the Rat King is still deep underground. How can its aura spread so far? Ding Ming was expressionless. "I'm afraid something happened to it. Let's hurry over and take a look." Julie didn't stop Ding Ming from leaving. She even sent a shuttle car to send Ding Ming and the others to the northern outpost. Once they arrived at the central cave of the mine, Ding Ming finally sensed that something was wrong. The Rat King's originally vigorous aura had weakened significantly. This was the rhythm of its life force fading away. No, it's not the Rat King's aura that's weakened, but the Holy Spirit's aura. Ding Ming sprinted through the passageway. His judgment was completely correct. Countless moles were still sleeping in the Rat King's cave, but the fiery red glow of the 8-clawed holy tree had dimmed. "What's going on?" Ding Ming rushed over. The Rat King opened its eyes. "You're finally back." Ding Ming discovered that the holy tree seemed to be withering. Why did the Holy Spirit's aura weaken? The Rat King said, "I used the holy tree's power to send a telepathic message to you. Fortunately, you sensed it." Ding Ming immediately took out a small crystalline bottle and tossed it to the Rat King. "I've already obtained the spirit Qingshan. You and your people should have no problem returning to the surface." The Rat King wasn't happy at all. Instead, it let out a long sigh. "Ding Ming, did you guys remove the command that sealed that expert?" Expert, XINGF frowned. "You mean the Grassroots Empire?" The Rat King sighed. "So he's called the Grassroots Empire. You've seen it before?" XINGF asked tentatively. The Rat King said, He came to the rainforest planet many years ago. Although I've never seen his face, I know that he's a very powerful hacker. In your human world, he should be one of the top experts. Ding Ming immediately had a bad feeling. What's going on? The Rat King's tone was serious. Ding Ming, hurry up and run. Run now. You still have 23 hours. Run as far as you can. Ding Ming was also a little nervous. Why should I run? The Rat King sighed. You don't know what kind of thing you guys just activated. It's my fault for not explaining it to you in advance. I originally thought that this kind of thing wouldn't happen, but I didn't think that this day would still come. Xian Jie hurriedly asked, what did we activate? The Rat King said word by word. You guys activated a super battleship, codenamed Sky Dragon. Super battleship? Ding Ming, Xian Jie, and Suxia all widened their eyes in curiosity. The Federal Empire's battleships were clearly divided into small, medium, large, special class, and leading motherships. The mothership class was actually equivalent to a star-class battleship. Its functions were quite advanced and powerful, and its endurance and combat capabilities were top-notch. However, they had never created a so-called super battleship. Although they didn't have a super battleship, that didn't mean that the concept didn't exist. It wasn't that they didn't have the financial resources to build one, but this kind of giant space battleship had too high of a requirement for its designer. If they didn't have the combined efforts of top-notch experts in the fields of data, energy, machinery, metal, and so on, it would be impossible to even think about it. The Rat King finally said something shocking. This super battleship hasn't been completed yet. It'll be fully charged in 24 hours. By then, it'll be too late for you to leave. Now is the time. Hurry up and run. Chapter 590. Even though the Rat King was urging everyone to escape, Ding Ming and the other two hadn't even moved an inch. How were they supposed to escape in this situation? Should they go back and ask Julie for a starship? Of course, Julie had no reason not to give it to them. Xian Jie took the initiative to ask, May I ask how this super starship was built? The Rat King sighed. Your question is completely unnecessary. You should be asking, what will this super starship be used for after it's built? Suxia hesitated. This is the periphery of the fertile chalk system's stellar vortex. It's the core of the war zone, and it's also an unknown territory that no one has ever set foot in. Could it be that this starship is owned by the Empire and is used to deal with the frogmen? The Rat King shook his head. Where this starship came from, how it was built, and who it belongs to, I have no idea. Ding Ming asked. Then what do you know? The Rat King said solemnly. I only know one thing. More than 10 years ago, a mysterious spaceship appeared in the fertile chalk system. This spaceship's functions were extremely advanced. Even the Federation and the Empire couldn't compare to it in terms of technology. In order to capture this spaceship, this super starship was created. Xian Jie was shocked. Technology that even the human world couldn't surpass was attached to a small spaceship. After all, this was a spaceship, not a spaceship or a starship. What kind of awesome concept was this? The Rat King said, the starship didn't manage to capture the spaceship completely. Instead, it imprisoned it. The two flying units exhausted all their means in outer space and entered the periphery of the fertile chalk system's stellar vortex. In the end, they fell here. Xian Jie's eyes flashed. But this doesn't explain why the Empire sealed the starship. The Rat King said, because this spaceship doesn't belong to our world. This was a very simple sentence, but it contained a supreme and profound philosophy. When something that belonged to an unknown world came to your world, it might not bring luck but disaster, and it might not be an ordinary disaster. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. Your Excellency, you want me to escape, but I can't. The Rat King sighed. You don't know this, but if you pilot the starships on the ground, you won't be able to fly far. Since things have come to this, I have no choice but to let you in. Suxia was curious. Where are we going? The Rat King said, enter this mysterious spaceship. Whether or not you can activate it will depend on whether you have the ability to do so. In any case, I've tried for many years, but to no avail. Xian Jie asked, where is this mysterious ship now? The Rat King said, right under my feet. As soon as he finished speaking, the countless moles in the pit began to wriggle, opening up a path for the three of them. At the end of the path was the belly of the Rat King, which was stuck to the ground. When the belly moved, there was a rotating, pure, white pupil. Ding Ming, Little Rascal, and Little Love exclaimed at the same time, "Xinguang Biotechnology's teleportation portal?" The Rat King sighed. The reason why I was able to survive all these years and the survival of my race was all thanks to the various energy sources provided by this spaceship. I believe that flying out of the fertile chalk star system will not be a problem. Ding Ming, hurry up and leave. Ding Ming hesitated. What about you? The Rat King smiled. Trust me, with Ling Qingshan in my hands, my people, and I have a much higher chance of survival than you. You should worry about yourself. The commander of this super warship is not ordinary. He's not someone ordinary people can deal with. Hurry up. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The teleportation portal glowed with white light and sucked Ding Ming and the other two inside. Then, Xinjie and Su Xia stared with wide eyes. It was normal for the two of them to be surprised because they had never seen the various wonders of Xinguang's mystical skills. However, Ding Ming's surprise had been used up long ago when he dealt with Chu Mingliang on the S expedition. This was indeed the interior of a spaceship. From the looks of it, it should be the command center. The biggest difference between it and human starships was that the interior facilities were all in a state of flowing light. Moreover, the command center of the spaceship was colorful and composed of many different lights. It was obvious that it was of a higher level than the S expedition. At this time, Little Rascal could not care less about Xinjie and Su Xia's shocking gazes. She floated out from Ding Ming's forehead and turned into a light shadow. Little Rascal's tone was unprecedentedly excited. Ding Ming, this is our Mao Xing Civilization's divine Aero-class reconnaissance spaceship. Mao Xing Civilization's reconnaissance spaceship? Ding Ming was shocked. Why is it here? Who are you? Xinjie was completely stunned. Ding Ming smiled helplessly. Xinjie, it's okay. Little Rascal is one of us. She's from Mao Xing. Mao Xing, Xinjie, and Su Xia's eyes widened. That great god civilization? Little Rascal smiled. Don't worry, I'm just a spirit. Spirit? Su Xia was also confused. In her perception, Little Rascal's aura was ridiculously powerful. It was even more terrifying than Ding Ming's aura. Since when could a spirit possess such tyrannical strength? Little Rascal gently waved her hand in the air. A small and exquisite light screen appeared out of thin air. Xinjie's eyes widened again. The light screen was indeed displaying various control patterns, but these patterns seemed to be some kind of hieroglyph. He could not understand them at all. Little Rascal manipulated the patterns as she explained. Xinjie, look carefully. These are the symbols of our Mao Xing language. You must learn them. Xinjie could only stare. Learning a language was not difficult for him, but the language in front of him looked simple, but it was actually complex. It was not inferior to the SSS grade code of a grassroots empire. This was because he saw that Little Rascal had only pressed a few buttons, and the combined commands were a long string of commands. Little Rascal said, "Don't worry, I've already converted the language system to human language." Sure enough, a sweet system voice rang out a few seconds later. Checking in progress. System charging. Little Rascal's voice suddenly dimmed. This divine Aero Scout ship has been damaged too much. Many of its functions are no longer usable. The reactor has been damaged by 45%. It will be very difficult for it to perform a long-distance space jump. While she was explaining, a 3D screen appeared in the air. From a screen, one could see the shape of the divine Aero spaceship. No matter from which angle one looked at it, it was in the shape of a three-pronged star. The spaceship gave people a feeling of sharpness, exquisiteness, and mystery. Just one look was enough to leave a deep impression. This was definitely an extremely high-tech spaceship. Xinjie's eyes were already wide open. His voice was trembling. Is this the spaceship of the great god civilization? Little Rascal said indifferently. This is just a very ordinary scout ship. Let's take a look at the event recorder. On the light screen, the divine Aero Scout ship seemed to be speeding through the depths of the vast universe. Suddenly, a huge battleship appeared. The shape of this battleship was indescribably awkward. First of all, its base was a complete cuboid. Secondly, the two wings of the battleship were black. They looked a little like wings, but also somewhat similar to the disc-shaped starships of the Steel Main race. At the front and back of the battleship were two spherical hulls. It was a little like the motherships of the Frogmen. One might not be able to tell anything just by looking at the design, because at this moment, a gap suddenly opened on the tail of the battleship, and thousands of drones were released. Each unit was comparable to a medium-sized starship, so densely packed that they covered the sky. Ding Ming and the others were dumbfounded. What kind of freak was this? Even a mothership of the Federal Empire was like an ant in front of this battleship. The little divine Aero Scout ship was practically nothing. However, the Mao Xing Scout ship was not to be underestimated. When the thousands of starships were released, something shiny seemed to shoot out from the rear of the divine Aero Scout ship. It looked very much like a cannon shell. However, it was precisely this cannonball that exploded with a bang halfway through its flight, creating a white vortex that glittered with cold light. The entire sky seemed to have been occupied by the vortex, and all the starships were sucked in. After a long time, the vortex disappeared, and the starry sky returned to peace and quiet. Ding Ming's eyes widened. This scene was very similar to when the Azurewood Divine tree opened a space-time rift and sucked in the entire fleet of the War of the Gods. One had to know that the War of the Gods was a super life form, and this small Mao Xing Scout ship actually had such a heaven-defying defense. Xinjie said with a trembling voice. Interstellar space-time, photon, torpedo. Little Rascal gave him a look of praise. Yes, but this torpedo consumes too much energy. The starship's energy source is limited, so it'll be very difficult for us to escape. Sure enough, the battleship quickly caught up. For some reason, the speed of the starship became slower and slower. Moreover, the battleship seemed to have an irresistible gravitational force, forcing the starship to slowly descend to the left wing of the battleship. At this moment, the image suddenly changed. The battleship and the starship began to descend into the atmosphere. Upon closer inspection, the ground was clearly the environment of the rainforest planet. The event recorder's image ended here. The group was silent for a long time because this scene was simply too shocking. After an unknown amount of time, Xinjie was the first to speak. This battleship, is it that so-called super battleship? Rat King's voice rang out in the command room. Yes, this is the starship. According to my observations, it has all the characteristics of the Empire, Federation, Frogmen, and Devourer Realm flying units. Xinjie let out a long sigh, and his entire body seemed to relax. I really don't know what kind of monstrous genius designed this thing. In any case, I don't think I can do it. Su Xia hesitated. Could it be the design of the Grassroots Empire? That's not possible. Little Rascal refuted. According to the event recorder's text, the super battleship imprisoned the divine Aero starship, but it couldn't control the starship system, nor could it enter the starship's interior. Moreover, after it crashed into the ground, the super battleship's energy source seemed to have a problem, and the entire starship fell into a state of paralysis. It's like it suddenly fell into hibernation mode and fell into a deep sleep. Your Excellency Rat King, is this the situation? You should be aware of these things. Chapter 591. The Rat King replied, yes, that was the situation at the time. After this huge object fell down, there was no movement at all. This ship is the same. The hatches are not open, and we can't sense the situation inside. It's like they've been bewitched and are hibernating here. Xinjie said, it's very simple. It's because this super warship was infiltrated by the Grassroots Empire at a critical moment. The Grassroots Empire shut down all of its engines and systems, sealing this ship. Little Rascal wondered, why would he do that? Xinjie sighed and said, I think there's only one reason for this, and that is that he doesn't want this Mao Xing spaceship to fall into the hands of the super warship. Little Rascal nodded and said, "That's true. Although this spaceship isn't the most advanced reconnaissance ship of the Mao Xing civilization, to the human world, Xinguang energy, Xinguang technology, and the various technologies, data, and items on the spaceship are all extremely precious existences. If any of them were taken away, that person would have the capital to dominate this star system." Su Xiao wondered, "But I still don't understand. The grassroots empire should be a human himself. Could it be that he doesn't want humans to get their hands on these high-tech gadgets?" Xinjie smiled bitterly and shook his head. "How can we fathom the outstanding foresight and awareness of someone at his level?" Rat King's voice rang out again. "Miss Mao Xing, my opinion is that the hacker expert wishes for this spaceship to be returned to its rightful owner. It's more appropriate to return something from the Mao Xing civilization to the Mao Xing civilization. It's obvious that this super warship isn't a military starship of the Federal Empire. If this ship were to fall into the hands of someone with ulterior motives, I'm afraid it would cause a great disaster." His judgment was undoubtedly the closest to the truth. It wasn't hard to explain why the grassroots empire wanted to seal off this warship and why they said those words to Xinjie. Dingming finally spoke. "I understand. The warship has 24 hours to recharge. Once it's fully operational, the Mao Xing spaceship won't be able to escape. We have to activate the ship during this time and leave this place." Little Rascal suddenly sighed. "We won't be able to activate this ship." Dingming was surprised. "Why?" Little Rascal said, "This is an unmanned reconnaissance ship. I just checked it. After it was sealed off by the warship, it activated its self-locking system." Dingming asked, "What do you mean?" Little Rascal said, "It's actually a self-destruct system. If someone tries to force their way in or activate the mainframe system, the spaceship will explode." Dingming was like a deflated balloon. "After all that talk, we still can't leave?" Xinjie said hesitantly, "Nothing is absolute. Is there no other way?" Little Rascal said, "There's another way to safely activate the mainframe system." Dingming asked, "What method?" Little Rascal said, "A real Meow star has appeared on this ship. It can be unlocked using other methods." Dingming sighed and said, "Little Rascal, you are just a spirit body and have not recovered yet. Other than you, where else can we find Miao Xing?" Little Rascal was silent for a long time this time. That grassroots empire had great foresight. The past is the past. You can't change it. You can't change it. No one understood what she meant by saying this at this time. Xiao AI suddenly said, "Dingming, Little Rascal is a Meow star spirit body. She doesn't belong to this dimension, but if she modifies herself into a three-dimensional life form, then she will have the authority to do so." Dingming looked at Little Rascal in surprise. "Little Rascal, if you really modify yourself into a three-dimensional life form, it won't affect you, right?" Little Rascal suddenly smiled. "Actually, it's fine. Dingming, it's not like I haven't been modified before. Didn't Professor Harsink modify me into Allie? In the past, I placed my hopes on the doctor, and I also placed my hopes on you. However, along the way, I slowly realized that the so-called ambition and the strongest king are just illusory things. The most important thing for a person is to have those good times and memories, and to move forward side by side with your best friends. This is also one of the qualities that our Mao Xing civilization values the most. It is also the foundation of our race that has lasted for tens of billions of years." Dingming hesitated. "But how can this modification be carried out?" "It's very simple." Little Rascal smiled and said, "It can be done as long as there is enough energy." "Enough energy?" Dingming thought of the Rainbow Temple. The enormous amount of divine light energy in the temple was only enough to restore Little Rascal to her spirit body state. He really didn't dare to imagine what kind of astonishing amount of energy would be needed to modify Little Rascal from spirit body to a life form. Moreover, it wouldn't be some low-level energy like a crystal source. At the very least, it would have to be divine light energy, right? At this time, Little Rascal reached out and touched the light screen again. Xingjian noticed that this light screen looked similar to the ones in the human world, but in fact, it mainly showed miniature images of objects. Every time Little Rascal touched the light screen, a large number of objects would appear on it. There were all kinds of strange things that Xingjian had seen before, and there were also some that he had never seen before. Not long after, the image of a ruby appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Xingjian asked curiously, "What is this?" Little Rascal said in a serious tone, "This is the only red origin crystal left on the spacecraft." Red origin crystal? Ding Ming was curious as well. Little Rascal sighed and said, "The distribution of origin energy in the universe is not uniform. In the main star clusters at the center of the universe, origin energy is dense and rich. In the more remote areas, it is very thin. For example, the Federation star system here is in a relatively remote area. However, over the long years of the universe, origin energy can form a pure natural inverse source crystal, and in the mainstream areas, the inverse source crystal can crystallize into the precious red origin crystal." F*CK. Ding Ming and the others were shocked once again. It turned out that this thing was the super essence of origin energy. Little Rascal seemed to know what they were thinking and explained, "That's right. The value of this thing is even higher than that of divine light technology. It's practically omnipotent. If there really is a creator in the universe, then red origin crystals are the raw materials that he used to create this world." After saying this, she reached out and pressed the confirm button. An eye of light immediately appeared in the center of the hall, and a palm-sized ruby floated out of the eye of light. In that instant, Ding Ming felt his brain expand with a hum, as if it weighed over 1,000 kilograms. He was on the verge of fainting, and the scene in the command center completely disappeared. His surroundings seemed to have transformed into a superstar vortex, and he was at the center of this star vortex, surrounded by layers and layers of colorful energy clouds. This was just the fluctuation of the red origin crystal, but it contained such a terrifying amount of energy. It could be said that it was simply unparalleled. "Ding Ming, lend me your divine light weapon." As soon as Little Rascal finished speaking, Ding Ming's bracers automatically flew out and wrapped themselves around Little Rascal's projection. The red origin crystal slowly flew into the projection as well, and a miraculous change finally began. The projection constantly changed colors and let out a rapid whooshing sound. The colors changed so quickly, and the light was so strong that it was hard to keep one's eyes open. The sound was so rapid that it made one's ears go numb, as if they were going to become deaf. Ding Ming turned his head to look again, and saw that Xinjie and Su Xia had both fallen unconscious on the ground. Little Rascal suddenly spoke. "Ding Ming, stand still and don't move. The two of them are too weak and can't withstand this kind of fluctuation, so they're temporarily unconscious. You, on the other hand, are different. You have the strength of a battle saint, so you can withstand this kind of energy." Ding Ming also felt it when she said this. The 10 origin points in his body were once again stimulated uncontrollably and began to spin wildly. From a cultivation point of view, it was not spinning, but simply being ignited. Little Rascal's voice finally became serious. "I swear in the name of love that everything in the world is tied to a single thought. I am willing to exchange my body for the blessings of the gods." She had also said this on the expedition, but this time, the projection did not fade away. Instead, it gradually became clearer, and the image of a human was clearly taking shape. Little Rascal raised the divine light bracers high up, and her voice became high-spirited again. "By the gods above, Princess Ariel pleads for a new life, and pleads for the protection of the gods." Damn, Ding Ming was the one who was shocked by Little Rascal. Back in the Rainbow Temple, from the words of the oddity, he felt that Little Rascal's identity was not simple. He guessed that she had a great background, but he never thought that Little Rascal was actually Princess Mao Xing. Ding Ming suddenly felt that his brain was not enough. However, at this time, more and more light gathered on Little Rascal's body, and the energy gathered became stronger and stronger. Even Ding Meng felt that he could not withstand it. His head became heavier and heavier, and his eyelids became heavier and heavier. Gradually, he closed his eyes and slowly fell unconscious. After who knew how much time had passed, Ding Meng gradually regained consciousness, and he suddenly opened his eyes. He suddenly discovered that everything around him had changed. The command center, which was originally covered in white light, had now become a world of colorful lights. Not only were these lights gorgeous, but they were also clearly layered, outlining the standard command center. However, it was more like a beautiful temple that was as beautiful as a fairyland. Being in this temple felt like being bathed in the spring sun, and it was pleasant and comfortable. In the center of the hall, two girls, one tall and one short, stood side by side. Ding Meng could only feel his heart thumping. Could this be Little Rascal? The taller girl clearly sensed that Ding Meng had woken up. She suddenly turned around and said, "Ding Meng, you're awake?" Ding Meng's mouth fell open. This was clearly Xiao AI's voice. He secretly circulated his origin energy and adjusted his vision. Sure enough, the two symbols that represented Little Rascal and Xiao AI had disappeared from his retina. Moreover, their unique reconnaissance vision had also disappeared. Now, he was using the purest telekinesis vision. "What's going on?" Ding Meng was shocked. The taller girl said, "Ding Meng, can't you recognize my voice?" Ding Meng stared at her in disbelief. "Are you really Xiao AI?" The taller girl proudly replied, "This is my true body. It's just that I was reborn in the form of a human life form." Chapter 592. Ding Meng was shocked speechless as he looked at Xiao AI in her human form. Xiao AI was very tall, a head taller than Ding Meng. She was wearing a set of ancient warrior's attire, which made her face look even more heroic. Xiao AI's appearance was more like Meng Yan's when she had just recovered her appearance. She had a kind of masculine, tenacious, and heroic beauty that was mixed together. At this time, the short girl turned around. Ding Meng was stunned again. The short girl was less than 1.6 meters tall and was dressed very plainly. She was wearing a light gray sweater, light blue jeans, and a pair of white sneakers. If they were not on the spaceship, Ding Meng would have thought that she was a female student from some city in the Federal Empire. The short girl had a round face. Her face could not be described as beautiful. It was the purest kind of purity, like a piece of flawless white jade. It was as if all the beauty in the world was concentrated on her. Anyone who saw this face would be moved, but they would not have the slightest intention to profane it. Ding Meng, the girl suddenly showed a warm smile. When she was not smiling, she looked like a picture scroll, but when she smiled, she immediately became lively. Her pair of peach blossom eyes seemed to be smiling as well, as if she was showing a kind of friendliness. "Little Rascal!" Ding Meng was stunned again. "I didn't expect you to become like this." Little Rascal was amused. "How is it? I told you that every time I change, my form will become more beautiful, but you didn't believe me." Little Rascal looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. Ding Meng could not imagine that the red origin crystal could produce such a rebirth effect. "By the way, Little Rascal, I didn't expect you to be Princess Mao Xing." Little Rascal's smile disappeared. "I'm sorry, Ding Meng. I didn't mean to hide it from you. I was just worried that it would put too much pressure on you. I also wanted to keep it a secret so that the demons wouldn't find out." Ding Meng said with a wry smile, "I really didn't expect that." Little Rascal said, "When Mao was destroyed, I was killed in the chaos of war. In order to protect me, the great general compressed me into a three-dimensional spirit form and sent me to this star system. I wandered in space until Dr. Harksini found me in an interstellar ruin." Ding Meng then looked at Xiao AI. "Is Xiao AI also a spirit? Why didn't I feel it?" Little Rascal said, "Little AI was my personal guard. She also sacrificed herself in that battle, and the damage she received was especially great, causing her spirit body to be damaged as well. In order to extend her life, I suggested that the doctor modify her into an AI program and embed it into a biochip. She has to rely on a host to survive, so she hasn't awakened until now. However, the true origin red crystal just now was full of energy, so I might as well restore her. Ding Ming let out a long sigh of relief. That's great. I didn't expect you to really recover. Xiao AI explained. We haven't truly returned to Mao. Right now, we're only in human form. After all, this is three-dimensional space. Ding Ming carefully sensed Little Rascal's and Xiao AI's auras. Their auras were very unique. They weren't pure heat or ice elements, but a combination of pure origin energy from all elements. However, the fluctuations were slightly weaker. Little Rascal seemed to be a junior warrior, while Xiao AI was a junior warlord. Little Rascal said, "The divine light energy and true origin red crystal only restored our spirit bodies and physical bodies. We still need to cultivate again to improve our strength." Ding Ming smiled. "Little Rascal, I'm very curious. How do you cultivate?" Little Rascal smiled. "As long as we have energy, we can cultivate. Our cultivation speed won't be slower than yours." Ding Ming, you have to know that I know everything you know, and I know everything you don't know. Ding Ming sighed. The Diamond Star art must be a high-level cultivation method of Mao, right? Little Rascal also sighed. That's something only royalty is allowed to cultivate. You have to know that I'm a princess. Only the direct descendants of my bloodline have the right to cultivate it. Ding Ming said, "No wonder it's so powerful. It's practically all-encompassing and invincible." Little Rascal smiled again. "Actually, I'm also quite curious. The Diamond Star art is far more complex and difficult than a human can cultivate, but Ding Ming, you're a freak. You managed to cultivate it to the terrifying height of 10 stars. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. "I was forced to cultivate it time and time again." Little Rascal smiled and said, "All right, let's not talk about this anymore. Anyway, Ding Ming, I'm very glad that I met you and not anyone else. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be where we are today. There's not much time left, so we have to prepare to set off." Ding Ming asked, "How much time has passed?" Xiao AI's tone was as indifferent as ever. "It's been 13 hours, 05 minutes, and 36 seconds. Ding Ming was once again convinced. It took Little Rascal and the others such a long time to recover. It seemed that he didn't have much time left. After waking up Xinjie and Su Xia, Xinjie and Su Xia were also quite shocked. In Xinjie's mind, the red origin crystal was simply too heaven-defying. It could actually reconstruct an extraterrestrial spirit body and even transform it into a human. This was practically cheating. At this moment, Little Rascal reached out and swiped the screen. The system's voice really did change. Pearl life form detected. System automatically authorized. "Your Highness, please give the order." Little Rascal frowned. "It seems that the energy is not enough to support an interplanetary space jump. We can only fly normally. Where should we go?" Ding Ming, set a target. Ding Ming pondered and said, "Let's go to the Norse Empire." "Don't go." Xinjie decisively stopped him. Ding Ming said in surprise, "Oh? Then where are we going?" Xinjie said in a low voice, "We're not going anywhere. We're just going to wait here for this super warship to finish recharging. I want to see what it really is." "I advise you to give up on that idea." Rat King's voice rang out again. This time, it was Xinjie's turn to be puzzled. "Why?" Rat King let out a long sigh. "Young man, seeing that you're also the chosen one, I can tell you responsibly that this warship has been buried underground for so many years, and I can't sense any fluctuations from it. No one has ever walked out from inside it. No one knows whether it's a human or a ghost inside. Although I can't sense the situation inside this divine aerospace ship, I now know that it's Xinguang Technology's self-protection system that isolates it from the outside world. However, this warship situation is definitely different." His words were actually very easy to understand. After all, divine aerospace ship was an extraterrestrial Xinguang technology. It was normal that high-end technology couldn't decipher it. However, this super warship was definitely not an extraterrestrial technology. It was something that belonged to this galaxy. The only question was who designed it and who was commanding it. Xian Jie gritted his teeth and said, "It's precisely because I don't know. That's why I want to find out." Rat King let out another sigh and said earnestly, "Young man, don't think that you people are very powerful. That's why you're so fearless. Let me tell you again, I've been absorbing this warship's energy and the minuscule amount of Xinguang energy outside the spaceship for so many years. If I were to transform into a human, I can say with certainty that all of you, including Ding Meng, would be no match for me. Even I am so wary of this mysterious warship. What more you people?" Xian Jie was still a little unconvinced. But it was ultimately created by the human world. Rat King sighed. "All right, you think you can do it. Then let me ask you, if Mao Xing's spaceship is so powerful, why couldn't it escape the pursuit of the super warship?" This, Xian Jie was stunned. "I haven't thought about this before. Perhaps there's another reason." Rat King said, "All right, if the first time is a coincidence, then what about the second time? Even the hacker of the grassroots empire that you admire the most was only able to seal it and not destroy it. If even the grassroots empire is so wary of it, do you think you're stronger than the grassroots empire?" Xian Jie could only lower his head and sigh. "You're right, senior. I was too arrogant. The grassroots empire also reminded me before, but I forgot again." Rat King said seriously, "I think that the most important thing for all of you to do now is to think of a way to stop this warship from recovering. I have a strong feeling that once this warship is operational, it and the people inside will pose a great threat to all of you, perhaps an unprecedented threat." This was the truth. Disregarding everything else, a single true red crystal was enough to make the entire Federation and the entire Empire go crazy. Fortunately, Little Rascal had already used it. Little Rascal pondered for a moment before saying, "The Divine Aerospaceship ship is only a reconnaissance spaceship. It doesn't have a powerful attack system, and we don't have much energy left. We can't just squander it." Xiao AI praised. "According to my calculations, many of the systems on our spaceship are already aging. Simple weapons won't be able to cause any substantial damage to a warship of this size." Ding Ming nodded decisively. "There's only one way to stop it from recovering, and that is to seal it again." Xian Jie smiled bitterly. "Sealing it again? Who else in this world besides the grassroots empire has the ability to do that?" Xiao AI stared at him. "Not even you?" Xian Jie shook his head. "I'm not worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as him." Little Rascal said, "We can go find him and ask him to take action. He must have his reasons for sealing this big guy back then. I also want to meet this legendary person." She didn't want to meet this great being, but she had finally found a Mao Xing spaceship after much difficulty. As long as it was something that could threaten the spaceship, she definitely wouldn't allow it to exist. She had to find a way to deal with it. Xian Jie seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "I know where to find him." Su Xiao was surprised. "Didn't you say that no one has ever seen a grassroots empire before?" "No," Xian Jie immediately refuted. "It wouldn't have been a problem if I said that a day ago, but when I was removing the seal at Julie's place, this proud, great being left behind a clue for me. I'm confident that I can find him again." Ding Meng said, "You mean we still have to make a trip back to the surface? Won't that be enough time?" Xiao AI immediately stood up. "It's fine. We can use the traveler transmission system on our spaceship to send you to the northern stronghold in just a few seconds." Chapter 593. Ding Meng had actually experienced the traveler's teleportation system before. It was the energy gate that had appeared out of thin air in the Divine Light Energy Warehouse. After the air rippled like water, a rift would appear, and after entering the rift, one would be teleported to a designated location. This kind of teleportation technology from a Mao planet had a huge advantage over the spectral transmission system. It did not require any coordinates or a beam of light. As long as one had been to a place, the spacecraft's mainframe would have a record of it, and it would be able to teleport them there. In less than 5 seconds, Ding Meng and Xian Jie's figures appeared on the suspension bridge at the Fifth Lord's headquarters. However, Ding Ming immediately revealed a strange expression. Something's not right, Xinjia asked. What's going on? Ding Ming frowned. There should be a lot of origin energy fluctuations around here, and there should also be energy fluctuations at the hangar, but it seems like there's nothing here. Upon hearing this, Xinjia decisively sped up and charged into the manor. Ding Ming was not lying. At this moment, the manor was empty and quiet. There was not a single person in sight. Where was everyone? Where did they go? Ding Ming spread out his telekinesis vision and scanned the area carefully. A moment later, his expression turned grim. There's nothing in the surrounding 10 kilometers. Xinjia did not have time to ask any more questions. He charged straight into the first floor of the manor. There was no one in the control room either. Julie was gone, the widow was gone, and the group of combat masters and generals from before were all gone. So many people had mysteriously disappeared. However, all the screens in the control room were still lit up. Without saying anything, Xinjia immediately pulled out multiple screens from the main control console and rapidly pressed on them with both hands. In an instant, the entire room lit up with a red light, and the system's voice rang out. Impossible! Impossible! What's going on? Ding Ming was a little nervous. A rare look of surprise appeared on Xinjia's face. While we were away, someone managed to lock onto this place from afar. Ding Ming frowned. What does that mean? He didn't understand the ways of the hacker world, so he couldn't help but ask this question. But in Xinjia's mind, this was simply like a bolt of lightning, shocking him to the point that his scalp went numb. The rainforest planet's special celestial body position made it impossible for quantum communication to connect to the outside world, which meant that the starships outside the star spiral would definitely not be able to connect to this planet. Other than that, there were only 3 possibilities left. The first possibility was that the Divine Arrow spaceship was involved, but that was obviously not the case. The second possibility was that there was a hacker at Fomalhaut, but this possibility was also rejected by Xinjia. Based on the level of the lock, even Xinjia would not be able to unlock it in a short period of time. Yen Yi's side would not have such a talent. Ding Ming said in shock. Could it be that the super warship has locked onto this place? Xiao AI's voice suddenly rang out from the walkie-talkie. The probability of this is very high because we've only just detected that the control room in the 5th Lord's headquarters is actually part of the battleship. It's just that we can't determine which part of the battleship it is. Xinjia took a deep breath, his hands fiddling with the screen at a dazzling speed. It was obvious that he wanted to unlock the lock again. Ding Ming didn't dare disturb him, so he quietly stood to the side. The difficulty of deciphering this time wasn't as great as the obstacles set up by the Grassroots Empire, but as Xinjia continued to operate, Ding Ming could still see some clues. Many of the screens in the control room were turning red one by one. This was a high-risk warning. There was an urgent chi sound, and a small control panel in the corner of the room suddenly burst into flames. Little Rascal's voice also rang out. Xinjia, I suggest that you stop trying to decipher it. Hurry up and return with Ding Ming. Xinjia's eyes widened, and there were actually traces of blood in his eyes. He seemed to be enraged. 3 of the control panels caught fire in a row, and the fire quickly spread throughout the room. Ding Ming also felt that something was wrong. He stretched out his hand to pull Xinjia. Stop it, let's go. This place is dangerous. Xinjia, however, was unmoved. His eyes were fixed on the central screen. Give me 1 more minute. I don't believe that they can stop me. A minute quickly passed, and Xinjia stopped his operation. The central screen finally turned red, and a new symbol gradually appeared on it. A large black hand appeared in the bright red, as if a black hand was pressing on a pool of scarlet blood. The image was extremely horrifying. The symbol of the Grassroots Empire was a strange green color, giving people an unfathomable feeling of mystery. However, this black hand symbol gave people an ominous, cruel, and dangerous feeling, as if it was a sign that some kind of disaster was about to befall. Who are you? Xinjia stared at the screen and asked. And who are you? The black hand actually responded. Its voice was also a mechanical voice that was neither male nor female, and its tone was very arrogant. There are only a few people in the entire Federal Empire who can remove my targeting program. What's your relationship with the grassroots empire? Before XNJ could answer, the black hand spoke again. You are definitely not a grassroots empire. The unlocking speed of a grassroots empire can't be so slow. It seems that you're just a rookie. XINJ had always been most proud of his various hacking skills. This was the first time someone had described him as a rookie. It was impossible for him not to be angry. XINJ sneered. Whether I'm a rookie or not, it's not up to you. You're wrong. The voice became serious, and its tone was quite overbearing. If I say you're a rookie, then you're a rookie. If you don't believe me, take a closer look. The central screen changed again, and it turned into a real-time image. The image showed XINJ and Ding Ming standing in front of the control panel, stunned. This meant that the other party had complete control of this place and could even turn on the surveillance cameras. The voice became playful. How is it? I can see you, but can you see me? XINJ clenched his fists. This was something he could not do. The strength of the other party was not something he could compare to. But you're not simple either. Looking at you, you look like you're in your 40s. It's quite rare for you to have such achievements in the world of hackers, but the voice's tone changed again. In front of me, your three-legged cat skills are just child's play. You can leave. Seeing that you're not a grassroots empire, I'll let you go this time. XINJ was so angry that he laughed. You sure talk big. Don't tell me you think you're comparable to a grassroots empire? The voice suddenly became a little angry. Who does he think he is? If he hadn't ambushed me from behind, would he have been able to invade my place? Every time this happened, Ding Ming would become very calm. From your tone, it sounds like you're on Rainforest Planet. The voice said proudly, I'm everywhere. Ding Ming laughed. Since you're so powerful, why did you still fall for the grassroots empire's tricks back then? The voice also calmed down. He seemed to have realized that his words had been tricked by these two people. He also seemed to take a deep breath, and his voice became fierce. 2 ants. If you can escape today, it'll be my loss. As soon as he said that, the whole room began to shake. This time, Ding Ming pulled XINJ and rushed out of the manor without another word. He did not even look back. By the side of the suspension bridge, the portal created by the divine Aero spaceship had been opened. Ding Ming pulled XINJ and jumped in. In the next instant, the two of them returned to the command center of the spaceship. From the screen on the spaceship, they could see that the divine Aero spaceship had already ascended high into the sky, and the radar detection image showed that the entire cliff of the headquarters of Fifth Lord's forces, including the manor, was rumbling and collapsing into a bottomless abyss. XINJ's palms were covered in cold sweat. He was not rejoicing that Ding Ming had pulled him away quickly. Instead, he was shocked by the opponent's strength. Other than the grassroots empire, where else could such a terrifying hacker come from? Little Rascal's expression was slightly serious. It's that super battleship. Xiao AI and I have detected its signal. XINJ took a long time to speak. Lord Rat King is right. I can't have any ideas about that battleship for now. Xiao AI looked at him. Have you found the answer? XINJ nodded affirmatively. I know where the grassroots empire is. He left me a clue. Let's go now. I'll locate the coordinates. Once the divine Aero spaceship was activated, it looked like a bird of light. It quickly pierced through the atmosphere and rushed towards the dark asteroid belt. Mao Xing's reconnaissance spaceship was extremely fast, even faster than the assault spaceships of the human world. It gave the impression of a meteor in space, entering outer space in the blink of an eye. An hour later, they had left the periphery of the fertile chalk system. However, when they entered the vast outer space, the central screen quickly turned red. The system's voice was incomparably serious. Your Highness, a large number of enemy spaceships have appeared in front of us. Please give the order. The reconnaissance image was quickly enlarged. Ding Ming, XINJ, and Su Xia couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The The sky was filled with densely packed starships that seemed to blot out the sun, completely forming a large net that cut off the path forward. Xinjia was a flight sergeant of the Empire. He could tell at a glance that these were 3 complete fleets. In addition to the Battle Dragon-class mothership, there were also Dragon Slayer Star Destroyers, Skywalker Assault Spaceships, Falcon Dragon Destroyers, Dragon Tooth Frigates, Rainbow Wing Reconnaissance Spaceships, and Hana Supply Ships. There were basically all types of spaceships. There were at least 300 spaceships in total. With such a tyrannical air force, even if they faced a mixed fleet of frogmen, they wouldn't be at a disadvantage. How could a small divine aero spaceship escape? Xiao AI adjusted the screen. But these spaceships don't have any insignia. They're definitely not a fleet of the Empire. Little Rascal decisively said, "We can't fight right now. We don't have enough energy. If we fight, we'll suffer a great loss." Xiao AI proudly said, "If we really fight, it's not like we can't win." Xin Jie's eyes widened. "Heavens, are you sure you're not joking? How could a mere reconnaissance spaceship contend with such a large military force?" Ding Meng frowned. His gaze fell on Little Rascal. "What do we do now?" Little Rascal appeared to be very calm. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, Ding Meng. I don't think they'll take the initiative to attack. Xiao AI, activate the spaceship's camouflage system. At the same time, open up external communication and let them in." Chapter 594. The Divine Aero spaceship had as many as 7 types of camouflage systems, but the simplest and most practical was still the face-changing system. This system simply used Divine Light Technology's energy source to block the enemy's quantum and ion detection, and then fed back the wrong information and signals to the reconnaissance party. In other words, the enemy's radar did not show the true face of the Divine Aero spaceship, but the appearance of the Songqing spaceship. It was a classic camouflage, but this could not be helped. It was best not to expose Mao Xing's spaceship. Once it was exposed, it would probably cause a huge uproar. After the communication authority was released, the long-distance real-time transmission was indeed connected in 30 seconds. Countless lights flashed in the hall, and a mirror image was being generated. This time, there were 2 images transmitted. One of them was none other than Lan Ling, who had escaped from the Fomalhaut headquarters. Ding Meng suddenly understood. Lan Ling knew that she was no match for them, so she must have gone to outer space to get reinforcements. The Apocalypse Group could not have acted alone. They had come to Rainforest Planet with great ambitions, so they must have prepared a backup plan. However, he did not expect this backup plan to be 3 huge interstellar fleets. Other than Lan Ling, the other person was an imposing and handsome man. The man was dressed in an expensive suit. He must be an important person in the Apocalypse Group. "Hello, friends. This is the Norse Empire Apocalypse Group's outreach fleet. I am Gu Baiming, the vice president of the Apocalypse Group. I have come to Rainforest Planet to look for Ling Qingshan under the orders of the group's higher-ups. To prevent any unnecessary misunderstandings, please drive your Songqing spaceship into our rescue port. Our group will treat you as an important guest. Thank you for your cooperation." His tone was polite, but the content of his words was not. It was a bit like a military fleet shouting, "Please enter the port for inspection, or we will use force." Ding Meng turned to look at Su Xia. Even with the mask on, Ding Meng could feel that Su Xia's face was ashen. What a coincidence that they met here. Little Rascal answered calmly, "I'm sorry. We have no misunderstandings with you, and we don't know anything about Ling Qingshan. Please don't block the way." This was a typical denial. Lan Ling had already returned to the fleet. Who would believe that Ling Qingshan was not in Ding Meng's hands? Bai Minggu revealed a playful smile. "Miss, are you sure your spaceship won't fly over?" Little Rascal smiled. "Are you sure you have the ability to make me come?" Bai Minggu sneered. "Let's wait and see." With that, the call was cut off and the image disappeared. Little Rascal turned his gaze to Su Xia. "Do you want to kill this person?" Su Xia clenched his teeth and said, "That heartless and unscrupulous bastard. All these years, I've been itching to tear him into pieces." Ding Ming smiled and said, "This is the vice president of Apocalypse Group. Are you sure you want to go against them?" Su Xia spat. "Bullsh asterisk T Apocalypse Group. They're just animals." Little Rascal nodded. "I'll give you and Ding Ming 15 minutes. I'll teleport you to the mothership on the other side, take out their main leader, and find their main control console. Leave the rest to me and Xingia. Are you confident?" To be honest, Little Rascal's idea was really bold. Ding Ming also believed that with Xinguang technology and Xingia's technology, teleporting them over would not be a problem. However, for a fleet of the Apocalypse Group scale, it did not make sense that there were no experts on the mothership. At the end of the day, no one had any idea how strong the enemy was. However, Ding Ming had absolute trust in Little Rascal. "Isn't 15 minutes a little too long? Can we hold off their firepower?" Xiao AI said proudly. "That's not something for you to worry about. Your mission is to find the central control panel and open up all the permissions. Let Xingia paralyze their command system, then we'll have a chance to slip away." Su Xia hurriedly said, "Let me accompany Ding Ming. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I must kill this animal with my own hands." At the same time, on the Dragon-class mothership, the huge command hall was brightly lit. Hundreds of staff members were nervously busy. All the control panels were on standby. Even though they were facing a small Songqing spacecraft, no one dared to let their guard down. Although Bai Minggu was the vice president of Apocalypse, he was not the commander of the fleet. The commander was a white-haired old man. "Elder Chun, the other party refuses to cooperate. What should we do next?" Bai Minggu asked. Elder Chun looked at Lan Ling, Assistant Lan. "Are you sure Ling Qingshan is in their hands?" Lan Ling nodded affirmatively. "I saw with my own eyes that Ding Ming killed Ding Xiong in an instant and forced Ding Ming to hand over Ling Qingshan. I can't be wrong. Ding Ming is in that Songqing spacecraft on the other side." Elder Chun was obviously very experienced. He muttered, "Kill Ding Xiong in an instant?" Although Fomalhaut doesn't have many experts, to kill a leader in an instant, this Ding Ming has to be at least a Battle Monarch level expert, right? Bai Minggu's mind worked quickly. "Elder Chun, you mean that once the other party spacecraft is controlled by us at the port, there must be a corresponding person controlling Ding Ming?" Elder Chun said, "Go and inform Zhenjiang and the others to return to the mothership and report to me immediately. Pass down the order. The patrol fleet is to set out and drag the target unit back to the mothership's rescue port. We must ensure that no one on this Songqing spacecraft is harmed." As soon as he gave the order, 3 Hunter-class patrol ships left the fleet and slowly flew towards the Divine Arrow spacecraft. Little Rascal suddenly laughed. "I knew the other side was very suspicious and wouldn't dare to directly attack. Little AI, activate the defense system." In the eyes of everyone on both sides, the Songqing spacecraft seemed to be scared silly. It was fixed in space and didn't move at all. It allowed the patrol ships to slowly approach and seemed to have given up on struggling. Bang! 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 The cannons at the front of the 3 patrol ships suddenly spat out 3 twisted and thick blue electric currents, hitting the surface of the Songqing spaceship. This was not a concentrated attack, but a type of braking energy. Its purpose was to imprison the Songqing spaceship and then directly drag it back to the mothership. This method was commonly used by the major fleets of the Norse Empire. It was simple, violent, direct, and effective. After the 3 electric currents hit the spacecraft, they didn't cause an explosion. Instead, they quickly expanded and formed a blue spherical energy field that firmly controlled the spacecraft. The 3 patrol ships surrounded the Songqing spacecraft from 3 different directions. Little Rascal created a small screen and pushed it in front of Xingia. "This should be fine, right?" Xingia smiled confidently. "Don't worry. If these 3 unknown things take the initiative to contact the mothership's communication system, I'll be able to determine the teleportation coordinates within 30 seconds. Bang! 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 The burning sound of the energy was exceptionally rough. The Songqing spacecraft's entire body turned blue. Because the light was too strong, It looked as if the entire spacecraft had been distorted. But here was the problem. The Songqing spacecraft still didn't move. Even such powerful energy couldn't shake it. What's going on? Elder Chun was a little angry. Are the people on the patrol ships dozing off? Why aren't you dragging the target back? A nearby worker immediately answered. Sir, we don't know what's going on, but we can't drag that Songqing spacecraft. Elder Chun was a little surprised. The tiny Songqing spacecraft wasn't even a match for the Falcon spacecraft. Under the Hunter-class patrol ships, it was like a bug. How could they not be able to drag it? Notify the front line to increase the firepower. They must drag it back in one piece. Elder Chun ordered again. Bang, 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 bang. There was another series of loud noises, and a blue light appeared in space. The 3 electric currents had now increased to 6, and the confinement energy had doubled. To be honest, it could even drag a medium-sized starship, but Songqing's spaceship was still motionless. It was as if it was nailed in space by a nail, and the energy field surrounding the spaceship had doubled in size. Elder Chun finally felt that something was wrong. Zoom in on the reconnaissance radar. Let me see what's going on. The real-time image quickly unfolded. The spherical energy field formed by the 6 confinement firepower looked blue. In fact, every 10 seconds, the surface of the energy field would suddenly emit a circle of white light in all directions. This process was very short and difficult to capture with the naked eye. This was definitely not a confinement energy field. It was clearly some kind of defensive countermeasures of the Songqing spacecraft. Elder Chun instantly made a judgment. Analyze its composition. A new screen immediately popped up on the main control console. The screen showed the blue energy field. Now, a green crosshair was locked on it. Beside it, densely packed data patterns were refreshed rapidly. Click, 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 a series of rapid sounds. This was the sound of the successful decoding command. Perhaps one sound would be acceptable, but when the light screen rang out consecutively, it really made one's heart skip a beat. Elder Chun turned his head again. What's the situation? The worker said in a trembling voice. 16 layers of its defense have been decoded consecutively. But the core position has not been detected. The opponent's defense composition is too complex. It's impossible to analyze it thoroughly. What? Elder Chun couldn't believe his ears. The Apocalypse Group represented the highest level of starship technology in the Empire. Even he could not analyze it. What kind of god was this Songqing spacecraft? In fact, this situation was exactly the same as when Du Pei led the Federation fleet to pursue the expedition. How could human technology break through the powerful defense of Xinguang biotechnology? Little Rascal said proudly. Just increase the power. They're charging us. I was just worried about not having enough power. Xin Jia suddenly said, We've located the exact coordinates. Unfortunately, it's in the middle of the mothership. The opponent is a little cunning. They've completely sealed off the bridge. Looks like Ding Meng, you can only force your way in. Ding Meng nodded. No problem. Don't worry. Send us over. I want to see who can stop me. At this moment, Elder Chun also changed his mind. Pass down my order. Deploy the Skywalker assault ship. Bai Minggu was shocked. Elder Chun, I'm afraid that this will destroy the spacecraft. They have this kind of defense mechanism. I'm afraid they obtained it from a super warship. The higher-ups want to take control of the warship. Elder Chun was stubborn to the end. He said sternly, Nonsense. If we can't even destroy a small Songqing spacecraft, how can we take control of the super warship? Bai Minggu was speechless. This was completely fallacious logic. But thinking about it carefully, this fallacious logic made sense. If you couldn't even take down a Songqing spacecraft, if you really found the super warship, then everyone could only watch helplessly. Chapter 595. There were 6 Skywalker's assault ships in total. They were like 6 flying swords as they shot through the sky at full speed. Xiao AI sneered as she touched the light screen. The blue energy field immediately shone with a white light, turning into a light pupil. Moreover, this light pupil was constantly rotating. The particle laser cannons and cannons on the Skywalker's assault spaceship seemed to be able to cover the sky, but they were all wrapped up by the rotating light beam. As for whether the spaceship inside was damaged or not, Old Chin's radar couldn't see it at all. "Sir, the assault ship's attack is ineffective," a staff member exclaimed. Elder Chin's face was serious. "What is this? Since when did Songqing's spaceship have this kind of defense system?" Actually, this was not a defense system. In the end, it was similar to the diamond star melting technique. It could absorb energy at any time. "The more you hit me, the stronger I get." Suddenly, the entire command center flashed red and the alarm went off. The system sounded mercilessly. "All crew members, please pay attention. An unknown unit has been detected. Coordinates AD 32, 56 CT 10. Elder Chun was shocked when he heard this. This was a Battle Dragon-class mothership. With such a tight defense system, how could someone sneak in? How do they sneak in? "Target confirmed," Elder Chin ordered. Actually, he did not need to shout. The internal monitoring system had already displayed the scene clearly. On the main road of the mothership's maintenance cabin, Ding Meng and a woman wearing a bat mask were walking towards the bridge. They looked like they were taking a stroll in their own backyard. "It's Ding Meng," Lan Ling exclaimed. Gu Baiming narrowed his eyes. This woman's appearance was rather familiar. Elder Chun sneered. "Just in time. You're here to die." He did not order the robot guards to activate the defense laser cannons because he knew that these conventional weapons were useless against a battlelord. "Where's Zhenjiang? Get his people to take care of Ding Meng." After Elder Chun gave the order, he turned around to look at the big screen in the center. The 6 assault ships and 3 patrol ships were still bombarding Songqing's spaceship. The main road leading to the maintenance cabins was not spacious. It was somewhat similar to a warehouse. Rows of steel frames were neatly arranged. Unmanned maintenance vehicles shuttled back and forth, providing supplies for the various cabins of the starship. At this moment, at the alloy gate at the end of the tunnel, a burly middle-aged man appeared. He wore a pair of shiny alloy gloves on his hands. He gently stroked the gloves with a look of pride and love. Ding Meng and Su Xia had already walked to the center of the tunnel. They stopped when they saw him. The middle-aged man finally spoke. "Haha, I didn't expect you would need my help." Ding Meng frowned, but did not say anything. The middle-aged man said, "Kid, you're not bad. It's your honor to have me take action. Do you know who I am?" Su Xia said disdainfully. "Who are you?" The middle-aged man said proudly, "Tian Zhongqi of the Apocalypse Group." He thought that by saying his name, he would be able to intimidate Ding Meng and Su Xia. Unfortunately, he had named the wrong person. Ding Meng and Su Xia were people who had been in outer space for a long time. No matter how famous he was in the Empire, they would not know him. Ding Meng started walking again. He could not be bothered to respond. "Stop right there," Tian Zhongqi said decisively. "Hand over Ling Qingshan and go back to where you came from." Ding Meng suddenly sighed. "Why do you have so much nonsense to say?" As soon as she finished speaking, the steel plates around them crackled, and sparks flashed. Tian Zhongqi was a little surprised. He didn't know that Ding Meng's telekinesis had destroyed all the surveillance cameras around them. "Nonsense!" Tian Zhongqi laughed disdainfully. "Kid, since you're so young, it's not easy for you to cultivate to the strength of a war monarch. I'm a person who loves talents. Sparing your life is for your own good. Don't overestimate yourself. You should know that our Apocalypse Group is one of the best. If you go against us, you'll be courting death." He was indeed full of nonsense. Ding Meng could not be bothered to respond. He continued walking forward. "Since you're so stubborn, prepare to die." Tian Zhongqi decisively rushed forward. This time, he was 30 meters away. His raised alloy gloves were slightly deformed in the air. Of course, it was not really deformed. It was just a visual error caused by his fast speed. As soon as he made his move, Ding Meng could immediately tell that he was a pure expert of the thermodynamics. Moreover, the punch he threw was quite imposing. With his fist as the center, the steel frames and small cars around them were all rolled up to form a whirlpool. The center of the whirlpool was facing Ding Meng's head. It did not seem like he wanted to kill Ding Meng with one punch. Instead, He wanted to drag Ding Ming into the whirlpool. In the next second, there was a muffled bang. All the whirlpools disappeared without a trace. Tian Zhongqi's fist stopped half a meter away from Ding Ming's face. The punch was not completed because Ding Ming had also raised his hand and thrown a punch. This was Ding Ming's style. If you want to hit me with your fist, I'll hit you with my fist. Therefore, this punch was a fist against a fist. With a plop, Tian Zhongqi fell to his knees. Ding Ming did not fall. Tian Zhongqi fell first. I told you that you talk a lot of nonsense. You really do talk a lot of nonsense. Now, do you still think you have a right to block my path? Ding Ming looked at him with disdain. Then, he continued to walk forward. Tian Zhongqi was kneeling on the ground. His right arm was hanging limply. Only he knew how terrifying Ding Ming's punch was. The bones in his entire right arm were all shattered. Moreover, he had to thank Ding Ming for showing mercy. If Ding Ming wanted to kill him, he would be a dead man by now. Ding Ming slowly walked to the tightly shut alloy door. He flew up and kicked the door. The 2-meter thick metal door immediately caved in. Ding Ming threw another punch, and the huge alloy door fell to the ground. Tian Zhongqi was dumbfounded. What kind of goddamn strength was this? Wasn't this a beginner-level battle monarch? How could a beginner-level battle monarch smash a door with his bare hands? While he was still in shock, the number of assault ships outside had increased to 9. This time, not only were they firing their laser cannons and cannons, they were even using their railguns. However, the pupil of light was still not broken. The staff member was a little anxious. Almost all of the attacks are ineffective. Old Chen finally saw the clues. He shook his head and said, "It's not that it's ineffective. It's still effective. This is just a load. Let's see how much energy this Songqing spaceship can carry." His thinking was not wrong. No matter what kind of defense mechanism it had, it would still have a load limit. This was just like how the human body absorbed origin energy. If it exceeded the limit, something would happen. However, before anything happened to the divine aerospace ship, something happened inside the mothership. The staff members cried out in alarm. "Sir, Captain Zhen's men can't stop Ding Ming. He's coming towards us." On the monitor, the images of the maintenance cabin, energy storage cabin, backup cabin, rest area, and transport cabin were all replaced by pockmarks. This was a sign that the signal had been cut off. In other words, wherever Ding Ming passed by, all the sensors had been destroyed. Moreover, looking at the path that Ding Ming was taking, it seemed that he was heading straight for the command center. "Zhen Zhang," Old Chun said decisively. Elder Chun, a man with an imposing appearance, walked up to him. Old Chen's expression was serious. Even a battle monarch can't stop Ding Ming. Zhen Zhang had already received the response from Tian Zhongqi and the others. Ding Ming was going straight in, and no one could stop Ding Ming. Fortunately, however, Ding Ming did not take anyone's life. "Old Chun, this Ding Ming is not to be underestimated. I'm afraid you'll have to take action personally this time," Zhen Zhang replied carefully. His words were very subtle. According to the way things were going, Ding Ming would not have a problem breaking into the command center. However, the command center was too important. Rather than waiting here, it was better to go out and take the initiative to stop Ding Ming. Old Chen nodded. He turned his head and said to Bai Ming, "Seal off the command center. If the situation doesn't look good, immediately transfer authority to the other 2 motherships." Bai Ming nodded. "Don't worry, Old Chun." At this moment, Ding Ming had already reached the largest passageway of the mothership. Once he passed through this passageway, he would arrive at the core of the mothership. When he raised his head again, Ding Ming saw Old Chun and Zhen Zhang appear at the entrance of the passageway. The door seemed to be a mechanical device that was slowly closing. Xing's voice rang out from the communicator. "Ding Ming, their core might be a mechanical simulation device. To be safe, you'd better end this quickly. If it's a mechanical device, even I might not be able to get authority. I'm afraid that they'll transfer authority away." Ding Ming took a deep breath. "How much time do I have?" Xing said. "If they really want to transfer authority, I estimate that they'll be able to do so within 3 minutes. F***CK. Ding Ming cursed silently. The auras of the two people in front of him were not as strong as the people from before. 3 minutes was really too short. It would be impossible for them to do so without resorting to extreme measures. Thinking of this, Ding Ming suddenly stopped in his tracks. He waved his hand and said, "Sister Xia, step back." Su Xia obeyed his orders. In fact, she had also sensed that the auras of the two people in front of her were too strong. They were at least at the level of high-level battle monarchs. Seeing the young Ding Ming with his own eyes, Old Chen was also secretly surprised. He couldn't help but sigh. "I didn't expect that a low-class academy like Li Stin would be able to produce someone like you. It's really a miracle." When he said this, there was no doubt that he had carefully investigated Ding Ming's background. However, this was normal. Ding Ming was also a citizen of the Norse Empire. Ding Ming's face darkened. "I don't care who you are. It's best if you don't block my way." Zhen Zhang took the initiative to speak. "Ding Ming, our Apocalypse group has close ties with the Empire's military. It can be said that we are the military's biggest supporters. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you really dare to barge in, then you're really going against the military. Seeing that you didn't kill anyone just now, I advise you to leave Ling Qingshan behind. This is not a bad thing for you." Chapter 596. The reason why Xinjiang was so persuasive was because he had seen through Ding Ming's identity as a member of the Empire's military. Based on his and Elder Chen's speculations, the military clearly wanted this Ling Qingshan as well. Ding Ming said indifferently, "It should be said that the Ling Qingshan is a poison. It's useless if you take it." Zhen Zhang was silent for a moment before saying, "It seems like the military is also eyeing the heavenly dragon." Ding Ming felt that it was very strange. This Ling Qingshan had nothing to do with the super battleship. He did not know why the Apocalypse group was desperately looking for this thing. However, now was not the time to think about these things. Time was running out. Ding Ming stared at Elder Chen and said in a cold voice, "I'll say it one last time. It's best if you don't get in my way." Elder Chen's arrogance also rose. "Kid, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you have a bit of talent. Today, I'll teach you how to behave." As he spoke, a layer of light yellow plating appeared on his body. This old man was also a standard thermodynamics user. Judging from his aura, he was also a standard high-level battle monarch. Elder Chun placed his fists on his waist and assumed a bow posture. 2 seconds later, a light blue shadow appeared in front of him. This was his clone. Ding Ming frowned. He discovered that this doppelganger was actually an external manifestation of pure source chi. Furthermore, the doppelganger's entire body was burning with origin energy crystal flames. Although the amount of energy it contained was not as strong as those top-tier experts, Ding Ming had never seen a martial skill of this level before. The doppelganger suddenly whizzed through the air like an eagle hunting a rabbit. Its light blue hands instantly threw out dozens of punches. Zhen Zhangzai smiled and nodded. He had seen Old Chen's 1,000-wave shadows before. This was an extremely rare martial technique for Battle Monarch experts. It wasn't a simple technique that allowed one to release their source energy. There were countless variations within it that were hard to predict. If this technique was used, the best outcome for Ding Ming would be that he would have to lie down. Ding Ming did not move. It was unknown whether he was stunned or scared. He allowed the clone's fist to rain down on his body. Ding Ming's body had been tempered thousands of times. Pung, pung, pung. The sound of punches rang out incessantly. Su Xia originally did not put Elder Chen in her eyes, but after seeing this situation, she began to worry about Ding Ming. If Ding Ming really fell, then her fate would be even worse. Suddenly, the pung, pung, pung sounds disappeared and was replaced by a hissing sound. It was as if someone had suddenly sucked in a breath. The clone's radiance actually disappeared into Ming's body. Then, it disappeared. It meant that not only did Ding Ming not lie down, but she also revealed a strange sneer at the corner of her mouth. This, Elder Chun and Zhen Zhang were both dumbfounded. What the hell was this? Ding Ming did not understand Elder Chen's 1,000 ripple shadows. By the same logic, they had never seen Ding Meng's diamond star fusing art before. Of course, with such a large amount of origin energy entering one's body, it was impossible to refine it for one's own use in a short period of time. Ding Meng raised his hand and chopped downwards. The blue origin energy turned into a crescent-shaped beam of energy that swept towards Elder Chun. It was as if a blade of light had come crashing down. Elder Chun was shocked and decisively dodged to the side. With a pung sound, the blade of light struck the mechanical door. A small piece of the alloy steel plate was actually melted. This kind of energy was simply too powerful. However, as soon as Elder Chun stood still, he and Zhenjiang both felt an indescribable pressure directly in front of them. This aura made it difficult for them to open their eyes. However, by the time they could see clearly, it was already too late. Ding Meng's carp leaping through the dragon gate had already arrived in front of Elder Chun. With a backhand chop, he accurately chopped down on Elder Chun's temple. With a pong sound, it sounded like a woodpecker pecking at a tree. Ding Meng landed firmly on the ground, and then withdrew his hand expressionlessly. When he looked at Elder Chun again, he was already lying on the ground, completely motionless. Even though he was still breathing, he seemed to have fainted. Elder Chun, Zhenjiang was scared silly. He tried calling out twice, but unfortunately, Elder Chun did not respond. Old Chun couldn't possibly respond to him. When Ding Meng's karate chop landed, he had injected a large amount of origin energy molecules into Old Chun's body. Old Chun wouldn't be able to wake up for a while, and even if he did, it would take him a lot of time and energy to recover. By that time, it might be half a year later. "Let's go," Ding Meng called out to Su Xia. Su Xia hurriedly ran over with a hesitant expression. "Aren't we going to finish him off once and for all?" Ding Meng smiled bitterly to himself. How could a high-level battle monarch be killed so easily? You're underestimating a battle monarch too much. However, now is not the time to explain this. Ding Meng took a few steps forward and pressed one hand on the steel plate of the mechanical door. In just 10 seconds, the door melted into a fiery red liquid. The entire command center was now exposed. Ding Meng walked in confidently. From the moment he made his move to the moment he melted the door, Ding Meng did not even look at Zhenjiang. Zhenjiang also stood in place, not even moving his feet. He wasn't just frightened, but he was also clear on one thing. In Ding Meng's eyes, he was already a dead man. She wouldn't even bother to kill him. The Norse Empire's military actually had such a heaven-defying character to be able to defeat a high-level battle monarch with a single palm. What kind of god was this Ding Meng? As soon as the door melted, they saw that the people who walked in were actually Ding Meng and Su Xia. The hundreds of workers in the command center were immediately thrown into chaos. They all stood up in shock. Many of the female workers screamed, as if they were about to run for their lives. Ding Meng casually raised his hand, and the hundreds of low-level origin ability users all fell to the ground with a crash. With Ding Meng's telekinesis as an intermediate warlock, Terminator could easily seal off their consciousness. At this moment, only Baiming Gu and Lan Ling were left in the command center. Lan Ling knew that Ding Meng was powerful, but she did not expect Ding Meng to be so powerful that he could even take care of Elder Chun. Baiming Gu forced himself to remain calm. He cleared his throat and said in a deep voice, "I'm the vice president of the Apocalypse Group, Baiming Gu. Friend, you should know the strength of the Apocalypse Group." Ding Meng was too lazy to pay attention to him. He walked straight to the command center and began to operate the command center. To Baiming Gu, Lan Ling, and Zhenjiang, Ding Meng was like a deaf person. He could not hear what others were saying. However, the problem was that Ding Meng was clearly tampering with their command center, but they did not dare to stop him. Baiming Gu was a little panicked. He roared, "Friend, do you know what you are doing? You are tampering with the command center of the Apocalypse Group's Battle Dragon mothership. Are you crazy? The Apocalypse Group is the strongest financial group in the Empire." He repeatedly emphasized the words Apocalypse Group, as if he was afraid that Ding Meng did not know. Su Xia slowly walked over. The mask on her face was already strange to begin with. At this moment, Her expression was even more ferocious. He is not crazy. The crazy person should be you. You are still the same. You don't have any abilities. All you know is to climb up the social ladder and use your name to suppress others. But is that useful? Bai Minggu had long found her familiar. He could not help but ask, "Who are you?" "Hee hee, you forgot about me so quickly?" Su Xia reached out and took off the mask on her face, revealing a beautiful face. Bai Minggu was stunned. You are not." Su Xia laughed sinisterly. "Shouldn't I be disfigured? And should I be dead? Do you think so?" Bai Minggu immediately panicked. "You're still alive." Clang! A sharp blade popped out of Su Xia's sleeve. "That's right. If I'm still alive, you're going to be in trouble." Bai Minggu suddenly turned around, seemingly ready to run away. Unfortunately, how could his mortal body be faster than an origin ability user's movements? Su Xia reached out and grabbed him. "You still know how to run away. This shows that you have some awareness." After saying this, her arm moved slightly. Her elbow lightly hit Bai Minggu's chest. It seemed very light, but in reality, it hurt his muscles and bones. Bai Minggu immediately went limp and fell to the ground. Su Xia seemed unwilling to interfere with Ding Meng's work. She simply grabbed Bai Minggu's collar and dragged him to a corner in the far corner of the hall. As for what she wanted to do, everyone present knew. Xing's voice quickly sounded from the control panel. "Okay, we have successfully connected to their core central system. Leave the rest to me." Ding Meng nodded. "I will wait for your good news." Xing's voice was somewhat puzzled. "Why do you sound like a ghost wailing and a wolf howling over there? Who is screaming?" Bai Minggu's screams were too loud, and not just once. Ding Meng glanced over and found that Bai Minggu had already been stripped naked by Su Xia. Su Xia would occasionally use a knife to cut up his body. It seemed like she was performing an operation. "It's nothing." Sister Xia met an old friend of hers. "They are currently on a friendly visit," Ding Meng calmly replied. Xing didn't ask any more questions. After all, he knew that anyone who could follow Ding Meng, whether male or female, was not a kind person. Everyone would be afraid of them if they were ruthless. However, after Su Xia tortured Bai Ming for a while, Bai Minggu didn't seem to be able to make any sound. Ding Meng was really curious, so he took the initiative to go over and take a look. He found that Bai Minggu had been tortured beyond recognition in just a few minutes. First of all, there were wounds of various sizes all over his body. The tendons of his hands and feet were all cut off. Ding Meng was well versed in the structure of the human body. He knew that these wounds were not fatal, but they were extremely painful. Secondly, all of his fingers and toes were cut off. Bai Minggu's handsome face was scratched into a pulp. His skin and flesh were torn open in many places, revealing the white bones. Su Xia's most ruthless move was to completely cut off Bai Minggu's lower body. She even opened up a few more holes in some places. Miraculously, Bai Minggu was still conscious. He didn't know what method Su Xia had used. Why didn't you get rid of him once and for all? This was what Su Xia had asked him earlier. Ding Meng returned the same question back to her. Su Xia put on her mask again and raised the bloody blade. She even opened her mouth and licked the blood stains on it. "Hee hee, I couldn't bear to kill him." "Why?" Ding Meng didn't understand. Su Xia laughed sinisterly. "Let him live. After we leave, he will be healed by the medical pod. In the future, he will have nightmares every night and live under the shadow of this for the rest of his life. He will always remember what happened today and hate me to the core. When he is white and tender, I will be able to operate on him." What was this kind of operation called in ancient times? Eunuchs, right? Zhen Zhang and Lan Ling, who were in the distance, felt their hair stand on end. Wasn't this method of revenge a little too cruel? Ding Meng glanced at Bai Minggu, who was in a terrible state, and said indifferently, "Your technique is not bad." Su Xia couldn't help but chuckle. "It's not easy to get your praise. In that case, let's do 8 or 10 more times until he commits suicide. What do you think?" Ding Meng was speechless. As expected, when a woman was ruthless, there was nothing a man could do. Chapter 597. In space, the patrol ships and assault ships had stopped attacking. All the other starships had received orders to stop attacking from the mothership. Of course, no one would have guessed that these orders were given by Xingia. This was where the hacker's advantage came into play. The crisis was resolved without a single drop of blood. The defensive energy field created by the divine light energy source did not disappear. The white pupil of light was still spinning, but an energy vortex had appeared right in front of the pupil. The space-time rift had been opened, and the divine Arrow spaceship flew in with a whoosh. After absorbing a large amount of attack energy, short-distance teleportation was not a problem at all. Ding Ming's group had slipped away under everyone's watchful eyes. Moreover, the Apocalypse group's fleet had no way of tracking them down. Ding Ming and Su Xia had been safely teleported back. Seeing the operating screen and the sea of stars flying by outside the window, Ding Ming let out a long sigh of relief. It had been 10 years since he piloted the S expedition into the wormhole. It was only today that he had truly returned. Little Rascal was still operating on the screen. At this moment, the interstellar map had been generated. Xiao AI fiddled with the cursor, representing the major planets one by one. Her finger finally stopped at a dot. Planet Watcher? Are you sure it's this planet? Xin nodded. I'm sure. The Grassroot Empire not only left their own unique logo in the final block of the program, but they also hid an SSS grade code. The code hinted at the Planet Watcher 3 times. The dot was quickly zoomed in. Planet Watcher was a small, remote planet far away from the Federal Empire. Its remoteness was not inferior to the V4 Poison Hazard planet. Many years ago, it was still considered relatively wealthy, but there were not many resources that could be used. Gradually, it was abandoned by the Federal Empire. The map showed that Xinjia's coordinates were a small village. Xiao AI was puzzled. Does the Grassroot Empire live in this village? Xinjia also showed a puzzled expression. But the hidden message in the program does indeed show that. Xiao AI clapped her hands and said, Ding Ming, we won't go down. Let Xiao AI pass you down. The village was located by a river. It was indeed very small. Judging from a number of houses, there were probably only 40 to 50 families here. Ding Ming scanned the village with his telekinesis vision. Except for a white-haired old man in ragged clothes at the entrance of the village, there was no one else in the village. Where did the people of this place go? Su Xia asked, puzzled. Ding Ming said with a sullen face, the people in this place are not missing. In my opinion, most of them are dead. Xinjia also nodded in agreement. These houses were too old, and many places were already rusty. Judging from the surrounding environment, the resources here were almost completely exhausted. However, they could still vaguely see the beautiful traces of Planet Guardian's past. At the very least, the streams in the valleys had not dried up, and the hills had not completely withered. They could still vaguely see scattered greenery. Hello, old man. Xinjia took the initiative to go forward and greet him, but halfway through, he was at a loss for words. He suddenly did not know how to ask. He could not possibly say that he was here to visit the Grassroots Empire, right? Unexpectedly, the old man took the initiative to say, Young man, you're here to look for someone, right? Xinjia said in surprise. How did you know? The old man sighed and said, I'm the only one left here, but someone once told me that a young man would come looking for him sooner or later. Ding Ming and the other two looked at each other. Could it be that the Grassroots Empire had already predicted that Xinjia would come? The old man suddenly said, Is your code name Hollow Teeth? Xinjia nodded in surprise. Yes, my name is Xinjia. Xin as in hard work, Jia as in outstanding. My code name is Hollow Teeth. The old man nodded in satisfaction. He pointed into the distance and said, Go ahead. He said that when you come, bring me there to look for him. Looking in the direction he was pointing, there was a 2-story cement bungalow on a small hill about a few hundred meters away from the village entrance. The house was really old and dilapidated. Furthermore, the house was very strange. There were clotheslines in the yard, and there was a large jar of sauce in the corner. There was also a well next to it. The clotheslines had turned yellow, and there were many cracks on the surface of the jar. As for the well, it had dried up a long time ago. This did not look like someone was living here. Instead, it looked like it had been left and used for a long time. Xinjie had already walked up to the gate. The gate was a rusty iron fence. Xinjie took a deep breath and asked, "Is anyone home?" At this moment, there seemed to be a flash of white light in the yard, and the iron gate opened automatically with a clatter. Ding Meng frowned and said, "There's no one in this house, but there's an AI system running automatically in this place. There's an optical computer in the room on the first floor, and the system commander coming from there." Initially, Xinjie was still wondering if the Grassroots Empire lived here, but after hearing Ding Meng's explanation, he was immediately certain that this was his residence. Because this village was so primitive and backward, how could it have an AI system? Xinjie turned his head and asked, "Old man, do you know who the owner of this house is?" The old man smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I know who the owner is, but I don't know his name. He's been in our village for more than 10 years, and no one has ever known his name." Xinjie laughed to himself. "It would be strange if you guys knew. Looking at the hundreds of billions of people in the Federal Empire, no one knew the identity of the Grassroots Empire." Thinking of this, Xinjie suddenly felt his heart pounding. This was because he was very likely going to meet this most mysterious and legendary almighty of the hacker world. This situation was like the most devout believer standing at the gates of a sacred temple, about to face the God in his heart. Xinjie even straightened his collar. He did not want to leave this almighty with a bad impression of being disheveled. The bungalow was a standard village building. The large room in the center of the first floor was the main room. In the middle of the room was a shabby square table, and next to it were two small wooden stools covered in dust. This place had indeed not been lived in for a long time. There was indeed a miniature optical computer on the square table, but looking at the model, it was quite old. Other than that, there was only a faded old photo hanging on the wall. The person in the photo was a young woman with an unusually sweet appearance. Xinjie was instantly stunned. That feeling was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over his hot-blooded head. Could it be that this person was that omnipotent Grassroots Empire? Could it be that this was her residence? This place was so shabby, so difficult, and she lived in this kind of place? Xinjie was really curious. Not only was he curious, he was also puzzled. Fortunately, the old man was already explaining. "She's the owner of this house. Counting the years, she's been in our village for 15 years. "Then where is she?" Xinjie quickly asked. The old man's voice dimmed. "She passed away 3 years ago." What? Xinjie and the other two were all shocked. Passed away? The blood drained from Xinjie's face in an instant. "How is that possible? How is that possible?" Ding Ming quickly said, "Old man, may I ask what the owner's name is? How should we address her?" The old man shook his head and said, "No one knows her name. We all call her Xiaoyan. She came from outer space 15 years ago. She even brought a 2-year-old child with her. We only know that she calls her son Xiaohua. No one knows the real names of the mother and daughter. It said that they're interstellar refugees who escaped from outer space. This." Ding Ming was also stunned. Although he did not know much about the hacker world, at least he knew one thing. This omnipotent Grassroots Empire was actually an interstellar refugee, and she even brought a 2-year-old child with her. This was completely different from the image of an expert in their minds. It was completely unexpected. Su Xiao was also a woman. She also had the experience of being a refugee. She could not help but ask. She brought her child here. How did she live? The old man pointed to the clothesline pole in the yard and said, "She was a laundry worker in our village. She made a living by washing clothes and dishes in other houses." Su Xiao was also stunned. On such a primitive and backward planet, laundry workers worked so hard and their income was so meager. Could it be that the Grassroots Empire relied on this to make a living? Furthermore, she had to raise a 2-year-old child. She could not imagine how hard life was for a Grassroots Empire. Was this the hacker who punished the Heavenly Dragon unit and made them helpless? Was this the king who emptied the Heavenly Dragon unit's account of hundreds of millions of galactic coins? Only God knew what kind of life she lived. The three of them were shocked and could not speak for a long time. After a long time, Xi and Jie could finally speak. This Xiao Yun, elder sister, how did she pass away? The old man also had a strange expression. She was only 26 years old when she came. However, she aged very quickly in the past 10 years. Before she passed away, she looked like an old woman in her 70s or 80s. We also found a doctor check on her, but she did not have any illness. She died of old age naturally. Xi and Jie was shocked again and again. According to the old man, even if Grassroots Empire was still alive, he was only 41 years old today, which was 2 years younger than himself. And Grassroots Empire was born more than 10 years ago. What kind of amazing talent was this? What kind of talent was this? What kind of talent was this? Heaven is really jealous of geniuses. Xi and Jie said regretfully. Ding Meng said, Old man, where is elder sister Xiao Yun buried? We want to pay our respects to her. The old man also sighed. She was not buried here. According to her will, her son took her ashes and left here, saying that he was going to send her back to her hometown. However, no one knows where her hometown is. Ding Meng was also speechless. This was not a pleasant feeling. Xi and Jie and Little Rascal had been painstakingly searching for this extraordinary person. Who would have thought that this person had already passed away for such a long time? When they finally found this place, all they saw was a portrait. The old man sighed. Xiao Yun told me before she died that in the future, a young man named Xi and Jie, codenamed Kongya, would come here to find her. Now that you are finally here, I have done what I promised her. I will go out first. If you need anything, you can come to the village to find me. Xi and Jie let out a long sigh. He was once again impressed. Even the events after death were calculated so accurately. If the person in the photo in front of him was not the Grassroots Empire, then who was? Who was worthy? Chapter 598. The sky was a little gloomy, and the atmosphere in the room was even more depressing. Facing the portrait of Grassroots Empire, Ding Meng and the other two were speechless for a long time. The person in the picture looked so charming and sweet, and her deeds when she was alive were so sensational. But who would have thought that she was actually a laundry worker from a remote planet? After an unknown amount of time, the sky gradually darkened, and evening was about to arrive. Xi and Jie let out a long sigh and slowly sat down on the small wooden stool. The optical supercomputer on the square table pulsed with a faint light. Xi and Jie lightly brushed away the dust on it. This was not a mainstream optical supercomputer, but a very old model of the first generation. Xi and Jie could not help but sigh. It's really hard to imagine. Other people would need a control center, a technology base, and even the power of many elites to launch an attack and defense. But this person only needed a small portable optical supercomputer to do it. If she was still alive, I can't imagine what kind of genius she would have been. Su Xia also silently stared at the optical supercomputer. I have a feeling that she was not an ordinary worker, nor a galactic refugee. She must have hidden her identity. She must have been a big shot when she was alive. Xi and Jie obviously agreed with this statement. He said in a low voice, there must be some reason why she fled here, changed her name, and lived such a lowly life. Su Xia asked curiously, who could force her to flee? Who could be so powerful? Xi and Jie shook his head. It shouldn't be an enemy. In this world, who has the right to be her enemy? There must be some other reason. Ding Meng obviously agreed. What about her husband? Is he not with her? The old man did not mention anything about this. Perhaps Grassroots Empire was a single mother. A single mother raising a child in a place like this. It was hard to imagine how difficult it must have been. Su Xia sighed. I still don't understand. Grassroots Empire has amazing hacking skills. Why would she be willing to live such a life in a place like this? With her skills, it wouldn't be difficult for her to become as rich as a country. I really don't understand. Xi and Jie thought for a moment. Maybe I know the reason. Oh. Su Xia turned her head in surprise. Xi and Jia stared at the picture on the wall. As far as I know, the grassroots empire did take away an astronomical amount of wealth from the Heavenly Dragon unit. The outside world thought that she had spent all the money, but that was not the case. She used all the money to help the alien refugees. No one could find any trace of her, and they couldn't find out her identity because no one expected that the powerful grassroots empire was actually such a person, quietly staying on the most remote planet, living the most humble and destitute life. Even I didn't expect it. Ding Ming and Su Xia were stunned. That was indeed the case. In their minds, a grassroots empire should be a big shot who could do anything he wanted and give off a powerful aura as soon as they met him. However, it turned out that they were completely wrong. If it weren't for all the clues pointing to this place, they would never have been able to connect the sweet and charming woman in the photo with the mysterious super hacker. Xi and Jie's eyes were slightly red. I'm thinking that she must love her son very much. Why do you say that? Xi and Jie said quietly. Why is she so poor? But why doesn't she use the money she got from the Heavenly Dragon unit for living expenses? If she was willing, her son should have the best growing conditions and receive the best education. Perhaps he would be a future genius of the Federal Empire. Hearing his analysis, Su Xia also felt that it was strange. Yeah, why is that? Which mother wouldn't want her son to have these things? Xi and Jie sighed. That's because she knew that the money from the Heavenly Dragon unit was obtained by her hacking, robbing, or stealing. But no matter how she got it, it was disgraceful behavior. She must value her son very much and taught him to be an upright person since he was young. She didn't want any stains on her son. She must have high hopes for her son, so she chose to live in poverty to set an example. Su Xia was also impressed. I didn't expect there to be such a person in this world. Xi and Jia slowly got up, came to the photo, and respectfully bowed deeply to the portrait. Your Excellency Grassroots Empire, I didn't expect to find you after you passed away. I was really born at the wrong time, and fate makes fools of people. Thank you for teaching me the skills, and your actions have earned my deep admiration. Ding Ming also sighed. He reached out and turned on the optical computer on the square table. The screen showed the unique green leaf logo of the Grassroots Empire. Xi and Jia, you do this, Ding Ming said. Xi and Jia nodded and fiddled with the screen. Not long after, countless rays fell from the ceiling and combined into a virtual image. It was indeed the appearance of a person. This person was the Grassroots Empire. She looked much more lively than the person in the photo. She was wearing a professional suit. Her movements were filled with intellectual beauty. She also wore a pair of low-light glasses. The first impression she gave was that she was a knowledgeable person. The Grassroots Empire smiled and said, Xi and Jia, if you can see this email, it means that you have activated the Heavenly Dragon battleship and found the clues I left behind in the Forbidden Program. You have also found my residence. Xi and Jia's heart thumped again, but he still didn't dare to speak. This was like the real person, even if it was recorded in advance. Grassroots Empire took the initiative to introduce herself. My name is Jiang Yinyan. You're 2 years older than me. It's Wednesday, October 3rd, 1744 of the Southern Era. Su Xia was shocked. She was clear about the Federation's calendar. This email was actually created 13 years ago. This almighty person really had godlike foresight. Jiang Yinyan stopped smiling and became serious. Xi and Jia, I know you must be very curious about who I am. Of course I can tell you. I am in the Holy Grail Federation's Space Research Center. I have a personal research center. My occupation is a red guest. My code is 001. Xi and Jia almost jumped up. Red guest number 1? This is the Federation's most authoritative expert. So that's how it is. Jiang Yinyan continued. The Federation and the Empire sent out secret fleets to outer space many years ago to search for resources. These years, there's been a lot of information coming back. I also accidentally discovered your existence from this information. I know that you came from another civilization, and I also know why you came to the Federation. These words really shocked Xi and Jia and the others, especially Ding Ming. He always thought that he was the only one who came from an unknown place like the Deshang Kingdom. He didn't expect Xinjia to also come from another world. Jiang Yinyun said, I also know that if I persuade you to give up, you will be more persistent. That's why I left a clue for you in the band program, allowing you to come here. She seemed to know what Xinjia wanted to ask and took the initiative to explain. You should have seen the black handprint, right? This is also the symbol of a super hacker. He is a very strong opponent and is famous in the top circle of hackers. As for his identity, even I don't know. It took me a lot of effort to freeze him in the hibernation chamber. In fact, I also know that a person like him can't be frozen forever. He will be released sooner or later. Rather than that, I might as well borrow your hand to release him. Xinjia's heart sank. He suddenly realized that he seemed to have done something very stupid in the headquarters of the Fifth Lord. It probably wasn't something good. Jiang Yinyun said, although the black handprint symbol is unique, I know that his private codename is the Fifth Lord. The Sky Dragon battleship is his work. The reason why it was created was to compete with the Golden Elephant battleship that I once designed. I know what kind of person you are and what kind of choice you will make. Therefore, after the black handprint is released, you will have to face him. With my understanding of him, he will definitely be an opponent that you can't surpass. Xinjia almost wanted to ask, why did you do that? Jiang Yinyun said seriously, the reason I released him is very simple. I just want you to understand that if you can't beat him, then don't think about going back. You won't be able to come into contact with the official Golden Elephant battleship, but the Sky Dragon battleship has the ability to travel through space. Moreover, it is the Black Handprint's personal product. If you want to truly travel the universe and perform a space jump, you can't go around the Sky Dragon battleship. You have to borrow its power. So, are you happy knowing this result? Xinjia could only smile bitterly. The brain circuits of these experts were really not something that ordinary people could understand. Jiang Yinyun continued, I also want to tell you something. After the Black Handprint is released, he won't harass you for the time being because he still has one more thing to do. That is to find clues about a civilization left behind in the Federation star system. This civilization is the Mouse Star civilization. This time, it was Ding Meng's turn to be nervous. He pricked up his ears and listened carefully, afraid that he would miss a single word. Jiang Yinyun said, there are 3 keywords for clues about this civilization. The map of the Holy Temple, the weapon of divine light, and the Mouse Star singularity. As for what they are exactly, I can only tell you this much. If you know the truth about these clues, it might not be a good thing for you. However, if you really do know one day, I think you will listen to my opinion. Jiang Yinyun seemed to be sighing. Before we parted, I lent you the learning memory chip codenamed Kanya on the darknet. I hope you can keep it here. From today onwards, your codename is no longer Kanya. Someone else will inherit it in the future. At that time, I hope you can lend a helping hand to the person with this codename. Xinjia nodded silently. Jiang Yinyun said, all right, Xinjia, goodbye. I sincerely wish you all the best. Finally, I have some words for you. I hope you will remember them. After she finished speaking, the mirror image slowly dimmed and faded away. However, the rays did not retract. Instead, they formed a line of words in the air. Use your determination to surpass what you can't surpass. Use your wisdom to change what you can't change. Use your courage to accept what you can't accept. And use your struggle to create what you can't create. Red guest number 1, Jiang Yinyun. Chapter 599. The cosmos was still as glorious as ever, but the Divine Arrow spaceship slowly left Planet Guardian. They had come to Planet Guardian full of confidence in their search for a grassroots empire, but no one had expected this outcome. Xinjia was disappointed, but Little Rascal was even more so. That means even a grassroots empire can't deal with that super warship. Xiao AI said, in theory, that is true. A cold glint flashed across Little Rascal's eyes. But the Black Handprint is also searching for our Mao Xing civilization's relics. We can't fall behind. Ding Ming pondered for a moment before saying, Someone on Professor Harson's starship must have survived and taken your divine light weapon. What we need to investigate now is the name list of the people on that starship. Little Rascal frowned. The professor was originally a data master and biological consultant hired by Sheng Hao Corporation. He later found me at the ruins of a mission, but the professor didn't choose to return. Instead, he left Sheng Hao Corporation. Ding Meng said, Sheng Hao Corporation knows about this too? Little Rascal shook his head. I'm not sure about that, but I do know one thing. According to Sheng Hao's contract, the professor's research results aren't allowed to be leaked. This is also why he left Sheng Hao. Xings said, the professor was worried that you'd be exposed? Little Rascal nodded. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is that he accidentally found Serum Shan. He wanted to study the cave virus alone. Ding Ming pondered and said, can I understand it this way? With the professor's abilities, he shouldn't have any problems in terms of technology, but he lacked funding, so he chose to cooperate with Haitian Group? Little Rascal said, correct. There's a reason for his choice. Back then, Haitian Group's strength was still very average, so it wouldn't attract the attention of the major corporations. Ding Ming nodded. If Sheng Hao, Starbao, and Arrow set their sights on this matter, the professor, Little Rascal, and Chu Mingfeng wouldn't be able to escape. Ding Ming's expression was a little absent-minded. So, Sheng Hao Corporation must have the professor's original data. Do we have to start from Sheng Hao? Xiao AI suddenly said, not only that. Don't forget that Haitian Group also knows some inside information. Ding Ming, you still have to go back and deal with Haitian Group. Xingia said, at the end of the day, we still have to go to the Holy Grail Federation before making a decision. Little Rascal turned around and looked at Ding Ming. That's where the problem lies. First of all, the Divine Arrow spaceship needs to find a hidden place to dock. Xiao AI, and I can't be exposed to the public for the time being. Second of all, Xingia and Su Xia don't have Federation citizenship, so they can only stay on the spaceship. Now, everything depends on you, Ding Ming. Ding Ming pondered for a moment and said, I know a place where we can stop. It's absolutely safe. We've been there before. Xiao AI's eyes suddenly lit up. Pandora V4, Poison Hazard Star. Planet V4 was the planet where Shuyan and the others had lived. It was located in outer space at the southern end of the Holy Grail Federation. The Poison Hazard Star could completely hide the Divine Arrow spaceship. Not to mention, the Divine Arrow spaceship's camouflage function was very powerful. Moreover, Meng Yan's Blazing Shark spaceship was parked there. If they went north from Planet V4, they would reach Flying Star City and the refugee camp on planet KV-303. Finally, they would transfer to the refugee camp spaceship and go to the Azure system. If Ding Meng had citizenship, he could enter Blue Moon from the space station. His final destination was Blue Pole Star City. This route would circle around the Norse Empire and the Holy Grail Federation, but it was also the safest route. Ding Meng took a deep breath. It had been 10 years since he left the Federation. He never thought that he would come back one day. He wondered if his old friends were still there. Were they doing well? Ding Meng couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Planet KV-303. The entire planet was still in that harsh, snowy environment. Although 10 years had passed, the 7-story U-shaped terminal building was still standing in the harsh cold. There were about a dozen spaceships parked on the parking apron in the plaza. This place didn't seem any different from 10 years ago. In fact, it was a lot more desolate than it was 10 years ago. In the terminal's control room on the 5th floor, a stocky young man was joking with a shorter young man. Xiao Wei, you're so stingy. You didn't even bring me a pack of cigarettes. This stocky young man was Yu Liang from the Green Arrow Mercenary Group. 10 years had passed, and Yu Liang had transformed from a young man into a big man. Big brother Yu Liang, Xiao told me to quit smoking. I've already quit for a few years, Xiao Wei replied with a sheepish smile. You know that I was seriously ill in the past. It's better if I smoke less. Yu Liang laughed. You're such a henpecked husband. You let Xiao take care of all your money. You don't have anything. Where's the alcohol? You didn't even get a bottle? Xiao Wei laughed as well. Only 4 eyes, and the others have alcohol. How could I have gotten it? The two were still chatting when the radar suddenly gave off a warning. A blinking red dot appeared on the screen. Xiao Wei immediately tensed up. An unidentified flying unit is heading our way. Don't panic. Yu Yang zoomed in on the radar image. The screen showed that a tattered, blazing shark spaceship was indeed flying towards planet KV-303. However, the spaceship was emitting a green signal with 2 flashes. This was a friendly interstellar communication sign. This spaceship looks a little familiar. Xiao Wei frowned. I think I've seen it somewhere before, but I can't remember where. It's better to be careful. Yu Yang had already gotten up. Get everyone to grab their weapons. We'll wait at the plaza. What if it's a trick? On the tarmac, a group of young mercenaries from the Green Arrow Corps set up their weapons and aimed at the slowly descending, blazing shark spaceship. The spaceship was really in a bad state. Even the exterior was covered in moss. It looked like it had escaped from a disaster. Even so, Yu Liang and the others didn't dare let their guard down. The human heart in outer space was unpredictable, and there were all sorts of unexpected events. Caution was the key to survival. Xiao Wei raised a loudspeaker and shouted, "Everyone on the spaceship, listen up. This is the base of the Green Arrow Corps on planet KV-303. Please disembark and cooperate with the inspection." The door to the connecting module quickly opened. There wasn't even a ladder in the connecting module, so the newcomer simply jumped down. Everyone was stunned. There was only one person who had jumped down. This person's clothes were ragged, and his body was covered in dirt. His hair was so long that it almost reached his waist. He was a living savage. "Don't move. Raise your hands," Xiao Wei shouted. Not only did the savage not raise his hands, he even flashed a set of white teeth. "Brother Yu Liang, Xiao Wei, don't you recognize me?" Yu Liang was stunned, and so was Xiao Wei. A moment later, Yu Liang's voice trembled. "Ding Ming, your brother Ding Ming?" Ding Ming smiled. It had been a long time since he showed such a sincere smile. "I didn't expect you to still be on planet KV-303. After confirming that it was Ding Ming, Yu Liang immediately ran over, his eyes red. "Brother Ding Ming, it really is you. I didn't expect you to come back alive. This is great." Ding Ming smiled. "What? You all thought I was dead?" Yu Yang's eyes were filled with tears. "The Starbao Corporation and the military said that you perished in outer space. They also said that the search and rescue fleet couldn't find you even after months of searching." Ding Ming was surprised. "Oh, something like that happened after I left?" Yu Yang turned around decisively. "Xiao Wei, brother Ding Ming is back. Hurry up and take out your precious wine." Where is he?" Xiao Wei had already entered the snowstorm and rushed into the terminal's first-floor hall. He shouted breathlessly, "He's back! He's back! Brother Ding Ming is back! Brother Ding Ming is back!" His voice was like a clap of thunder. After a moment of silence, the entire hall burst into an uproar. The name Ding Ming was unforgettable to the refugees of planet KV-303. The tarmac was soon surrounded by people. Most of them were familiar faces. 10 years had passed, but there were still the same people. Ding Ming was also excited because he saw Xiao again. Xiao was already married and had a child with Xiao Wei. The child was about 7 or 8 years old and was very energetic. This reminded Ding Ming of Xiao Shanzi. "Ding Ming, you're finally back." Xiao also started crying. 10 years ago, when Ling Xingxian announced the news of Ding Ming's death, Xiao washed her face with tears every day. She cried for a few months, but this time was different. This time, it was tears of joy. Ding Ming smiled and said, "Xiao, don't worry now. I'm not going to die." "Uncle Ding Ming, Uncle Ding Ming." Xiao's child ran over and looked up at him. "Mom and Dad often talk about you. They all say that you're a great hero." Ding Ming patted his little head and smiled. "What's your name?" The child immediately answered with his head held high. "My name is Dashin." "Dashin?" Ding Ming could not help but laugh. Xiao must have given him such a name to remember Xiao Shanzi, who had died in the disaster. Brother Ding, we're here, we're here." Another person in the crowd rushed up in a panic. Ding Ming smiled again. He did not expect to see the four-eyed man and the Russian in this place. These two hotheads were almost exactly the same as they were 10 years ago. The four-eyed man was wearing a bright yellow suit. The suit was really dirty, and he was wearing straw sandals. He was really full of character. And the Russian still had the collapsing Hong Shan in his mouth, shaking his head and swaying his head in a sloppy manner, a living example of a local hoodlum. However, Ding Meng sensed it and was slightly surprised. You two have made great progress. You're actually advanced war supremacies. Not bad, not bad. The four-eyed man was immediately proud. He shook his head and said, "Of course. To guard our base, we need to have some strength. Don't you think so, Russian?" The Russian took a puff of his cigarette, but, "Brother Ding, we're now the captains here. It's our duty to protect everyone." Ding Meng was surprised. When did these two become captains? Seeing that everyone was chatting enthusiastically, Yu Liang hurriedly said, all right. Don't worry. Brother Ding is back. This is a happy occasion. We'll definitely get together tonight. Let's go to the commander's office first." Chapter 600. The commander's office was still the same as it was 10 years ago. The furnishings and decorations had not changed at all. Other than the necessary table, chairs, and coffee table, there was nothing else. It was extremely simple. However, with Ding Meng's return, the coffee table was still filled with sweets and pastries. There were even a few bottles of wine. It was obvious that the situation in the Green Arrow base had improved greatly over the years. After listening to Yu Liang's brief explanation, Ding Meng learned that Yu Liang was now the deputy commander of planet KV-303 and was in charge of the operations here. Xiao Wei did not return with Xu Yin and the others. He stayed behind for Xiao and formed a new family with her to be in charge of transportation. The four-eyed Russian had been staying here all these years. What about Commander Fong? What about Commander Gu? Ding Meng was very curious about their whereabouts. And what about the captain? Yu Liang knew that he would ask about these people, and his face immediately darkened. What's wrong? Ding Meng immediately had a bad feeling. Yu Liang sighed and said, Commander Fong fell 4 years ago. Ding Meng was shocked. What happened? Are you sure? In his memory, Fong Jinghao was not weak either. He had already become a war supremacy 10 years ago. At least in the mercenary groups in outer space, no one could touch him, right? Yu Liang sighed even harder. It's true. It said that he took on a big mission and unfortunately died in an accident. His body was personally transported back by the captain. It was confirmed that his spirit body had also disappeared. We don't know the exact reason, but there's news that it has something to do with the Starbow group. It seems to have something to do with that celebrity. A sexy figure immediately appeared in Ding Meng's mind. Su Mengxing. Yu Liang nodded. Yes, it's her. Ding Meng was silent for a while. What about Commander Gu and the captain? Yu Liang said, Commander Gu took over Commander Fong's position. Captain Salmon is still here, still taking on bounty missions. He went out recently and went to the Norse Empire. I can't contact him for a while. Speaking of this, he tried to squeeze out a smile. But once he knows that Brother Ding Meng is back, he will be so happy that he won't be able to sleep. Ding Meng did not smile. He muttered, If I remember correctly, the transit string promised me 10 years ago that it would build a material transfer point here. Four Eyes, weren't you in the Russian station here because of this? The four-eyed man and the Russian immediately looked at each other. After a long time, the four-eyed man sighed and said timidly, Brother Ding, this place was indeed prepared to be repaired. The materials were all transported in. In the end, after the news of your death in outer space came back, the Star Rainbow Group did not take any further action. When he saw that Ding Meng's expression was not good, the Russian felt guilty. Ding, Brother Ding, I even asked the person in charge at that time. He said that he did not receive any orders from his superiors. Later, I went to Blue Pole Star City and looked for your old acquaintance, Miss Liu. Miss Li helped us ask around. She said that the headquarters did not give any orders and the Star Rainbow Group withdrew. Ding Meng sighed slightly. In fact, he also understood these things. Back then, The transit string had taken a fancy to his results and talent in the Starlight examination, so they had offered all kinds of conditions to rope him in. In the end, he flew into a wormhole in outer space and died in theory. The Star Rainbow group did not need to rope him in, so all kinds of conditions were naturally invalid. After all, this was normal human society. He had always been active in outer space, where the law of the dark forest was respected. It was normal that he did not come into contact with these things. Of course, he could understand the Star Rainbow group's approach, but this kind of thing was not very pleasant. Yu Liang smiled again and explained, "Brother Ding, in fact, our subbase has always relied on our own people. Without the Star Rainbow group, we can still support ourselves. Don't you think it's pretty good now? At least everyone is not bullied by pirates and can live a normal life." Dingmeng glanced at him. "Brother Yu Liang, I paid attention to it before. 10 years have passed, and only the four-eyed Russian's strength has improved. You guys are still stuck at the warrior level. Many of you are still beginner origin energy users. This refugee camp is still a refugee camp. There has been no improvement at all." Yu Liang also felt guilty when he was glanced at by Dingmeng. He could only brace himself and explain, "It's all because of the two of them." Dingmeng's gaze fell on the four-eyed man. "You don't have to explain in front of me. The two of them can fight, but they can't manage it all. They can sell a cigarette stall and collapse. How can you expect them to run a mercenary subbase?" The four-eyed man smiled awkwardly and said, "Brother Ding, your eyes are still sharp." Mao Zi sighed. "Brother Ding, in fact, during the years you were away, there were still many of your former friends who helped here. Although there weren't many supplies, it was enough for everyone to live a good life." "Oh." Dingmeng was curious. "Who are they?" The four-eyed man hurriedly said, "There's a couple called Zhengming and Sun Shirling. Every year, they'll provide a large batch of fresh ingredients here. They've never stopped. Last month, Big Brother Zhengming personally delivered 3 transport ships." Dingmeng was a little surprised. He remembered that he had taught Zhengming and Sun Shirling during the Starlight exam. He had also reunited Zhengming and Sun Shirling. He did not expect Zhengming to remember this kindness. This Zhengming was not bad. Mao Zi said, "Brother Ding, do you still remember Bogus Planet? That Du Mo and Miss Li Ju have been helping here all these years. They have never stopped." He had a good relationship with Du Mo, and Liu had also received his favor in the Starlight group. It was reasonable for them to come here often. A Qiao suddenly counted with her fingers. In fact, there are many people. Dr. Shui and Senior Rin often donate supplies. Miss Mingyan also passes by here as a guest. There's also a young lady who claims to be Lan Bing, who has also come here a few times. Dingmeng was a little surprised. What was Lan Bing doing here? What was that fierce woman planning? However, when he heard that there were still people helping here, Dingmeng still felt a little warm in his heart. After all, they were his former friends. They had not forgotten him. Even if he had fallen, they knew that this was the place he missed when he was alive. There's also a young lady from Blue Pole Star City who comes here 3 times a year. She claims to be your girlfriend and brings a lot of supplies every time. Ah Qiao looked very happy. Dingmeng's girlfriend had been missing him for 10 years. Every year, she would visit the old place again. However, when the four-eyed man and Mao Zi heard the words, "young lady," they began to wink and grimace. Dingmeng looked at their expressions and knew that there was something going on. He couldn't help but ask, "Four-eyed, what are you doing?" "Cough, cough. Brother Ding, my eyes are misty. I can't see clearly. I'll be fine after blinking twice." The four-eyed man panicked. It was this vulgar excuse again. Dingmeng's gaze fell on Mao Zi, who immediately clutched his stomach. "My stomach hurts. I want to take medicine." "Ah Qiao, can you help me get some medicine from the warehouse?" Xiao Wei spat. "Bah, you're a war Reverend-level origin ability user? Are you bullying me because I'm uncultured?" Dingmeng turned his gaze to Yu Liang. Yu Liang knew Dai Yi, and his expression was a little ugly. "Brother Dingmeng, this might not be good news for you. You should be mentally prepared." Dingmeng was puzzled. "Did something happen to young Lady Dai?" Yu Liang shook his head. "Not really. As far as I know, young Lady Dai, you will be holding an engagement ceremony next month. The other party is the Bai family of Blue Pole Star City. Ding Ming didn't show any expression. He simply replied, "Oh, that's a good thing." His reaction surprised everyone, but it was normal. Ding Ming had been on the brink of death all these years. His various experiences had determined that he was relatively indifferent to the matters between men and women. If there were any women who could make an impression on him, the first would be Lan Bing. After all, they had had intimate contact before. The second would be Lu Qing. Lu Qing had been willing to give up everything to escape with him on Planet Extreme Flame, which had indeed moved him a little. Unfortunately, her whereabouts were unknown. As for Dai Yi, Ding Ming didn't have any deep feelings for her, but he couldn't just ignore her. The Bai family? That Bai Bo. Yu Liang nodded solemnly. Yes, that's the Bai family. When Ding Ming was still on Planet Blue Moon, he had also heard that the Bai family was a top family in Blue Pole Star City. The sect master was Bai Bo, who was hundreds of years old. Not only did he have profound strength, but he also had a high reputation. He had many children and grandchildren, and most of them were successful and famous. In Blue Pole Star City, the Bai family's reputation and influence were above that of the Lang family and the Du family. Most importantly, the Bai family was not limited to Planet Blue Moon. It was also backed by the Bai family of Sacred Splendor Capital. Ding Ming nodded. It's normal for a man and a woman to get married. It's not bad news. The four-eyed man couldn't sit still. Brother Ding, but the situation is not what you think. I heard that this engagement ceremony seems to be forced. Young Lady Dai herself is not willing. What he really wanted to say was, Brother Ding, how can you tolerate this? If someone wants to make you a cuckold, you must kill them and cripple them. Ding Ming looked at him again. Is there a reason behind this? I'm not very sure about that, the four-eyed man replied. But the engagement ceremony is indeed real. We did not receive an invitation, but young Lady Li did. I even saw the invitation. Ah Qiao said in a timely manner, Ding Ming, you should hurry to the Azure faculty and clarify this matter. Young Lady Dai is your girlfriend, and she has always been very friendly to all of us. Her words were really effective. No matter what, at least you have been kind to Planet KV-303 for the past 10 years. Just based on this point, if you was in any trouble, Ding Ming couldn't just sit by and watch. It seemed that there were a lot of things to deal with this time. Ding Ming suddenly said, Brother Yu Liang, can we still use the basement where we used to take refuge? Yes, it's our warehouse now. Yu Liang did not understand what he meant. Ding Ming said, Can you expand the basement? I'll have a use for it in the future. Yu Liang hesitated and said, It can be done, but it will take a long time if we rely on manpower. Ding Ming understood what he meant. After all, Planet KV-303 was a backward place. If they wanted to build large buildings, they would need to spend money. All along, Ding Ming did not have any concept of money. Now, not only was he penniless, he did not even have a wristwatch. I'll think of a way to get the money. Ding Ming made up his mind. Chapter 601. For the next 3 days, Ding Ming stayed on Planet KV-303 peacefully. In addition to catching up with the people in the refugee camp, Ding Ming connected to the International Space Network through the base and browsed through some of the things that had happened in the past 10 years after he left, mainly about the current situation of his former friends. First of all, in the past 10 years, the Xinhong group had risen again. After a series of internal reforms and the upgrade of the curved mirror technology, Xinhong and Shenghao are now on par with each other. Ling Zhixing was still the boss of Xinhong, but the transit string had announced that she would be the CEO of Xinhong 5 years ago, which showed that the rise of Xinhong in the past few years had a lot to do with her. Secondly, Ding Ming was concerned about Cartel and Li Yu, who had also changed a lot. Cartel was now the chief designer of the Xinhong curved mirror technology, and Li Yu had been transferred to the vice president of the Blue Moon branch of Xinhong. However, Ding Ming felt that it was not appropriate to contact Li Yu and the others now. Fang Jinghao's death had not been investigated clearly, but at least they knew that it had something to do with Su Mengqing. The situation of Planet KV-303 could not be separated from the transit string's neglect. All kinds of clues pointed to the Xinhong group. His mission this time was to find out the name list of the people on the Kuan Peng starship, so it was inevitable that he would have to deal with Sheng Hao and Haitian. It was very likely that he would be on the opposite side of the Xinhong group in the future. This was also why Ding Ming's thinking was more mature than 10 years ago. This was a normal human society, and many things could not be done purely by force. In addition to the Xinhong group, the Haitian group had also suffered a disastrous decline because of the death of Chu Mingliang, Chu Yifeng, and Chu Lei. Now Chu Zhongyu's third aunt was in charge, but it was declining day by day. It had long been removed from the Federation's list of major groups. As for the Du family, Du Mo had long followed his brother to join the Federation's military, so he could not be contacted for a while. Shuyan and Run Tianlan had already returned to the capital of Saint Splendor many years ago. Meng Yin and Lan Bing's whereabouts were uncertain. However, according to what Four-Eyed had revealed, Meng Yin had always been active among the major mercenary forces. The Holy Grail Federation's outer space forces were actually very similar to the Norse Empire's. The Empire's forces were occupied by the four major families of Toughman, Sky Dragon, Lightning, and Lightning. On the other hand, the Federation's forces were occupied by the four major families of Green Arrow, Dragon Slayer, Sky Wolf, and Surprise Assault. Originally, the Bandit Federation was also considered one of the four major families, but many years ago, Ding Meng single-handedly defeated the Bandit Federation, so they could be ignored. Since Meng Yin could not be contacted for a while, Ding Meng's travel and information were greatly restricted. After thinking for a while, Ding Meng suddenly thought of a suitable person to ask for information. 3 days later, a starship carrying the Surprise Assault Regiment landed on planet KV-303. It was reasonable to say that the starships between the regiments did not interact with each other unless there was an extremely special reason. However, Yu Liang still sent an invitation to the Surprise Assault Regiment. He did not expect the Surprise Assault Regiment to give him enough face and arrive on time. On the tarmac square, Yu Liang led the four-eyed Russian to personally welcome them. A group of people walked down the stairs connecting the cabins. The leader was dressed in a suit and had a big belly. The group of people followed him in front and behind. The four-eyed Russian sneered and said, "This guy really has good fortune after surviving a great disaster." The Russian deeply agreed. That's right. If Brother Ding had not spared his life back then, how could he be where he is today? This middle-aged man with a big belly was none other than the Marshal. The Marshal could completely ignore Yu Liang's invitation, but the four-eyed Russian and the Russian were on planet KV-303. The Marshal had to give them face no matter what. Ahem, hello, both of you. It's been a long time. The Marshal took the initiative to greet them. The Russian smiled embarrassedly and walked forward. He habitually handed over a cigarette. "Come, have a cigarette first." After the Marshal took it, he saw that the logo was Hong Shan. He could not help but frown. He had always only smoked cigars. He did not like low-grade cigarettes like paper cigarettes. At that moment, a lighter secretly reached out from the side to light his cigarette. At the same time, a lazy voice sounded. "Marshal, you're living very comfortably now. Are you looking down on Red Pagoda Mountain? How did this person come?" The experts of the Surprise Assault Regiment did not react at all. The Marshal was shocked. He turned his head to look, and the cigarette in his mouth immediately fell to the ground with a thud. "Ding! Ding!" The Marshal's voice stuttered. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. "Brother Ding! Boss Ding!" Ding Ming put away the lighter. "What's wrong? Did you think I died?" The Marshal was surprised and happy. "Brother Ding, you're still alive and you're back. That's great." Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. "I remember that the commander of the Surprise Assault Regiment was a guy called Shi Qing, right? Why didn't Shi Qing come this time, but you did?" The Marshal smiled embarrassedly. "Shi Qing is no longer the commander of our Surprise Assault Regiment. That guy owed someone a huge debt and ran away. I'm the commander now. That's even better." Ding Ming looked thoughtful. "Let's go. Get on the ship." The Marshal was stunned. Why did he want to leave so soon? Ding Ming seemed to know what he was worried about. "I want to use this carrier ship. Do you have any objections?" No. The marshal was so shocked that he almost jumped up. 10 years ago, Ding Ming was an existence that he looked up to. He did not even dare to think about the current Ding Ming. He could only smile and say, "It's our honor that Brother Ding wants to use my starship. Everyone call him Boss." Boss. Brother Ding. Boss Ding. A group of mercenaries immediately scrambled to shout, and at the same time, took the initiative to give way. The marshal's attitude was very proper. He bowed and lowered his head. "Brother Ding, where are we going?" Ding Ming said decisively, "Holy Grail Federation, Azure System, Blue Moon Planet." The marshal's expression turned bitter again. "Brother Ding, don't play with me. It's not like you don't know that our mercenary starship from outer space can enter the Federation's jurisdiction." Ding Ming looked at him meaningfully. "I know you have a way, right?" The marshal was most afraid of seeing Ding Ming's playful gaze. He could only bite the bullet and say, "Yes, yes, yes. Brother Ding is still the best. You know to call me over." Among the few major mercenary forces, only the Surprise Assault Regiment had the most transportation capacity. They controlled a large number of transport ships. With such a large transport fleet, it would be a lie to say that the marshal had never dealt with the space station border. How big of a deal would it be if the commander of the Surprise Assault Regiment did not want to squeeze people into the Federation's territory through the space station? Of course, Ding Ming's purpose in doing so was not to alarm others. There were many things to solve on this trip, and he wanted to keep a low profile as much as possible. If the outside world focused all their attention on him, it would inevitably cause trouble. The resting area of the transport ship was very luxurious. It was almost as luxurious as Chu Xiaoqing's starship. It could be seen that the marshal had lived like a prince all these years, and had indeed lived a comfortable life. However, Ding Ming did not have much of an appetite when he saw the fruits and pastries on the coffee table. "I called you over this time, mainly because I need your help with a few things." The marshal knew that it was not something good, but he could only bite the bullet and say, "Brother Ding, please tell me." Ding Ming said, "I know that you have a good relationship with the leaders of the major mercenary groups. You are also quite popular in the Federation's territory. Let me ask you, how did Fong Jinghao die?" The marshal felt his scalp go numb. He did not know that Ding Ming had returned, but when he saw Ding Ming appear on planet KV-303, he knew that Ding Ming would investigate this matter sooner or later. Commander Fong died in an accident. Green Arrow accepted a bounty mission. The mission location was at the border of the devouring sector. He unfortunately died after he went there, the marshal answered. Ding Ming stared at him. "I'm afraid that's the official explanation, right?" The marshal lowered his head. "That's what the Starbao group said." Ding Ming sneered. "You're a mercenary leader yourself. How dare you go to the devouring sector?" The marshal also knew that it was impossible to hide this from an expert like Ding Ming. He could not help but sigh. "Only heard about it from Yin Fengwei." "Yin Fengwei?" Ding Ming frowned, as if he was trying to recall this person. "The guy from the Flying Star City?" The marshal nodded and said, "He has a good relationship with many influential people in the Federation, so it's more likely that it's true." Ding Ming said, "Tell me more about it." The marshal said, "Brother Ding, do you know Su Mengqing?" Ding Ming said, "I've dealt with her more than once. I even know that Fong Jinghao used to be your lover." The marshal said, "After you left, the Starbao group's attitude toward the Green Arrow group changed a lot." Ding Ming said, "I already know that." The marshal said, "Captain Fong knew that you had a good relationship with Su Mengqing when you were still around. In order to seek development, he took the initiative to find Su Mengqing. We guessed that he might want to use Su Mengqing to connect with the Starbao group again. Moreover, the two of them seem to have rekindled their old relationship. However, Su Mengqing has been too popular in the entertainment industry over the years. What does this have to do with Captain Fong?" Ding Ming did not understand. The marshal could only explain patiently, "Brother Ding, you're not from the entertainment industry, so you naturally can't understand. Su Mengqing was made famous by the Starbao group. If her secret relationship with Fong Jinghao were to spread, the outside world would be in an uproar." Ding Ming understood now. Su Mengqing was a goddess that everyone admired. If she were to get involved with a mercenary leader from outer space, Not only would it affect her reputation, but it would also cause the Starbao Group to suffer losses. This was something that the investor behind Su Mengqing would absolutely not allow. But there's no need to kill someone, right? Ding Meng's eyes burned with anger. He did not have a deep relationship with Fong Jinghao, but he admired people like Fong Jinghao and Layman. If Fong Jinghao had really died in an accident, then so be it. However, if he had been plotted against, then Ding Meng could not sit idly by. 10 years ago, he did not have the qualifications to challenge big groups and forces. However, 10 years later, he had the strength to uphold justice. The marshal answered carefully, I also heard from old man Yin that the women in the entertainment industry are all busses. I just don't know why Fong Jinghao was still attached to her. Su Mengqing might be a slightly more advanced bus. Ding Meng glanced at him again. You've been talking for a long time, but you still haven't explained the cause of death. The marshal sighed helplessly. I heard that Su Mengqing was the woman of a big shot in the Starbao Group. Ding Meng was expressionless. So Captain Fong was plotted against? The marshal shook his head and said, I don't know the details. Ding Meng said coldly, What's the name of this so-called big shot? The marshal spread his hands and said, It's even more impossible for me to know. Did the transit string know about this? Ding Meng really wanted to ask, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. It was already quite rare for someone of the marshal status to know about Fong Jinghao and Su Mengqing. The marshal was not even qualified to look up to someone of the transit string status. I didn't want to go to the Starbao Group, but it looks like I have to go. Ding Meng's eyes flashed coldly. Chapter 602. Blue Moon Planet, Blue Pole Star City. Star Rainbow Corporation's giant ring building stood by the blue sea. It was already evening. The afterglow of the setting sun and the lights of the entire city complemented each other. The sky was pale blue like holy light, giving people a beautiful feeling. In the vice president's office on the 630th floor, a beautiful white-collar lady was tidying up her desk. It was time to get off work. The busy day was over, and it was time to welcome a beautiful night. Liu took out a small mirror from her bag and carefully touched up her makeup. She had been promoted to one of the vice presidents of Star Rainbow Corporation's Blue Moon branch. Her image outside was very important. This was also something that the transit string valued. In the past 10 years, Liu had been promoted from the Vice Minister of General Affairs Department 3 to Vice President. The transit string had made an exception and promoted her. This was because Liu had contributed greatly in discovering Ding Meng and persuading Cartel to return. Furthermore, Liu had always been diligent and dedicated. Now, she was in charge of the general affairs of the Blue Moon branch. This covered a lot of areas. After touching up her makeup, Liu carried her bag and walked to the door. Suddenly, she felt that her vision was a little blurry. When she looked up again, she realized that there was a black shadow on the crystal glass door. She thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her. She rubbed her eyes carefully. It was really a black shadow. It was definitely not a simulation. A huge shock instantly spread through her body. Liu instinctively wanted to scream, but her throat seemed to be choked by an invisible hand. She couldn't make a sound. Her reaction was still very fast. She retreated to her desk in fear. There was an alarm under the desk. Once it was triggered, the guards of the Star Rainbow building would be notified instantly. However, this was the Xinghong building, and the security was extremely tight. It had been many years since any suspicious person had broken in. Not to mention suspicious people, without obtaining the identity verification of the mainframe system on the first floor, even a mosquito would not be able to fly in. However, the person in front of her had entered. The alarm from the first to the 630th floor was not triggered. Could it be someone from the Star Rainbow Corporation? The black shadow suddenly sighed. Don't press the alarm. It's useless. This voice was very familiar. Liu said with a trembling voice, Who are you? Her fingers had already touched the diamond-shaped sensor under the desk. However, the problem was that no matter how hard she tried, the sensor was not triggered. It's me. The black shadow's voice was very low. He floated out from the shadows like a ghost. Liu looked more terrified than if he had seen a ghost. You. I remember now. You're Mr. Ding Ming. You're actually still alive? Ding Ming withdrew his telekinesis, and Liu immediately relaxed. Mr. Ding Ming, they all said that you died in outer space. Is that what the transit string galloping horse and the others told you? Ding Ming asked. Liu could hear that Ding Ming's tone was not friendly. She could not help but sigh slightly. Mr. Ding Ming, it's good that you're back. Planet KV-303 has been doing well under everyone's care. She was undoubtedly very smart. She knew that once Ding Ming came back, Ding Ming would pay close attention to all the personnel related to him. In fact, she knew more than the four-eyed man and the others. The transit string had failed to do what they had promised Ding Ming. Planet KV-303 was a typical example. Secondly, Xue Yin and the others were not properly settled. The four-eyed man and the Russian citizenship were later revoked. This was the main reason why they had been holed up on planet KV-303. Neither of them dared to tell the truth. Ding Ming gently waved his hand, and a chair automatically slid over from afar. Ding Ming slowly sat down. Liu, if I remember correctly, you were the one who arranged for Mr. Cuddle to buy supplies and send them back to his hometown every year, right? Liu was still a little nervous. Yes, but Mr. Cuddle is now a senior executive in headquarters. Ding Ming looked at her quietly. I came to see you in private this time because of this reason. Ding Ming did not say it out loud, but Liu could still hear that he had always trusted her. It was because Ding Ming liked her simple and honest character. Back then, all the departments in the building despised Cuddle. Only she treated Cuddle with respect like an elder. Liu slowly sat down in her office chair and said emotionally, Mr. Ding Ming, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I am where I am today because of you and Mr. Cuddle. Ding Ming did not say much and went straight to the point. What is going on with Fong Jinghao and Su Mengqing? Others may not know, but you must know. Sigh. Liu let out a long sigh. The boss has 3 daughters. Mr. Ding Ming, you must know. Ding Ming certainly knew that Ling Zhixing had 3 daughters, Ling Xingqi, Ling Xingwen, and Transit String. Transit String was ranked 3rd, so the people in the headquarters called her eldest Miss, second Miss, and Miss Ling. Liu said. Second Miss Cousin is the person in charge of Starbao Group Entertainment Investment Company, Limited. He made Su Mengqing famous. Ding Ming finally understood. Her cousin is Su Mengqing's lover. Liu sighed. It is said that he is very suspicious when Commander Fong died. Ding Ming's voice became cold. If he is, then he is. If he isn't, then he isn't. There is no such thing as suspicion. Liu sighed. I don't know the details. I only know that Miss Ling was very angry at the time. However, she was not the CEO at that time, so she did not have as much authority as Second Mississippi. I heard that the boss wanted this matter to be dealt with internally in a low-key manner. In the end, the news was suppressed. Very good. Ding Ming was expressionless. Do they really think that I am dead and no longer exist? Do they not care about Green Arrow's feelings? Liu's face also turned ugly. Commander Galaga and Captain Silman went to the headquarters in the capital to ask for an explanation. In the end, they were beaten up and driven back. The captain was also recuperating in Blue Pole City for half a year. It was Brother Zheng Ming and Mrs. Zheng who took care of him. Ding Ming nodded silently. In the end, they still don't see the people in the refugee camp as human beings. Liu said sadly, I'm sorry, Mr. Ding Ming. There is nothing I can do about this matter. Ding Ming's expression softened. It is not your fault, Liu. I thank you on behalf of my friends on planet KV-303. Thank you for your selfless assistance over the years. He really did not blame Liu. With Liu's status and ability, he could only watch from the sidelines when faced with these powerful people. To some extent, he did not even have the right to ask about it. The night outside the window was bright and bustling. The bright lights reflected through the crystal glass, but the atmosphere in the office was even more depressing. After a long time, Ding Ming slowly opened his mouth. What's going on with Dai? Liu smiled bitterly. Since Ding Ming was back, Dai, it was a topic that could not be avoided. Miss Dai and Bai Qingyun were classmates when they were at Starlight University. Ding Meng was curious. How come I don't know about this? Liu smiled even more bitterly. You stayed at Starlight University for a very short time. Furthermore, you were in the limelight at that time. You even dared to provoke Jiang Hai. How could Bai Qingyun appear? Ding Meng said. According to what you said, this Bai Qingyun was a suitor. Liu sighed. He's a crazy pursuer, but at least he knows his place. At that time, you were Miss Dai's official boyfriend, so he backed off in the face of difficulties. After you left, Miss Dai also graduated from the Starlight examination. Miss Dai didn't have a job and has been working hard to cultivate. This isn't a good sign for the Dai family. Ding Meng actually understood this point. Dai Yi's family situation was very similar to Chu Xiaoqing's. However, the Dai family was not as rich as the Chu family. Furthermore, Dai Yi's father, Dai Ranjun, was an official and did not value martial artists very much. Liu continued. After that, Bai Qingyun started to crazily pursue Miss Dai again. However, the situation was different. Ding Meng frowned and asked, "What's the difference?" Liu said, Bai Qingyun got married after graduating from Starlight University. His first wife came from an aristocratic family in the capital. With the Bai family status, the Dai family had to look up to them. Ding Meng asked, "Which generation of the Bai family is this Bai Qingyun from?" Liu said, "If Bai Bo is from the first generation, then Bai Qingyun is from the third generation. Furthermore, he is ranked 5th in the third generation." Did Miss Dai agree to his pursuit? This was what Ding Meng was truly concerned about. If Dai he got married because of his death, he could completely accept it. However, if it was some other situation, then it was a different story. Liu shook his head and said, Miss Dai clearly rejected him. Ding Meng was a little surprised. "But I heard that the engagement ceremony is going to be held next month?" Liu sighed and said, "Of course, this is not Miss Dai's intention. It is a decision made by the entire Dai family." Ding Meng said, "Oh." Liu sighed and said, "Mr. Ting, you came from outer space, so you don't understand the Dai family's way of doing things. If the Dai family wants to develop better, it is common for big families to form alliances through marriage." Ding Meng scoffed at this argument. If they wanted to develop better, they had to become stronger. Depending on a big family was no different from handing their fate to others. If Miss Dai really marries, won't she become Bai Qingyun's second wife? Will the Dai family be willing? Ding Meng was a little curious. Who's this guy? Liu knew Ding Meng's character. When he heard Ding Meng's words, he immediately became a little flustered. "Mr. Ding Meng, this Bai Qingyun is not simple. He founded the Fangda group in our Blue Pole Star City. At the same time, his father is quite famous. The typical example is his second uncle, Bai Nanzheng, and his aunt, Bai Fenghua. Bai Nanzheng is one of the vice presidents of the Star Bao Group's headquarters. Bai Fenghua is the leader of the left faction in the Holy Grail Federation's parliament and a strong candidate for the next president. No wonder. Ding Meng seemed to understand something. If Dai Yizhen married into such a rich family, not to mention the second wife, even the 10th wife, the Dai family would soar to the sky. Dai Ranjuan's official career was simply immeasurable. Seeing Ding Meng fall into deep thought, Liu couldn't help but sympathize with him. "Mr. Ding Meng, the Bai family is indeed very powerful. This engagement ceremony is already very sensational. When the time comes, many famous people in the Federation will attend. Why don't you take advantage of this time to go out and relax?" "Okay," Ding Meng replied without hesitation. "By the way, Liu, no one knows about my return for the time being. Don't tell anyone about it. Also, can you find a way to give me a car without a license plate?" Liu said, "Mr. Ding Meng, feel free to use my car. I will give you the authority later. You just came back. Do you need a wristband?" "Forget it." Ding Meng thought about it. Liu's wristband was definitely a product of Star Rainbow. It would be inconvenient if the space station's reconnaissance system located him. "I'll think of a way to get the wristband myself. Then you need credits or star coins. It'll save you some inconvenience." Liu was very considerate. Ding Ming's current appearance was that he didn't have a single decent piece of clothing on him. He was even wearing a tattered suit with 4 holes. It was indeed a bit of a waste. I appreciate your kindness, but I don't need those. Ding Ming waved his hand. Before he came, he had already scammed a Federation bank password card from the marshal. There were 200,000 star coins on it. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough for traveling. Besides, Ding Ming had no intention of spending it. Wouldn't it be better to use the money in the refugee camp? That kind of life and death experience made them feel a real sense of belonging. That was a real family, and no one could ever replace it. Ding Wenhe quickly ran out and stood in front of Ding Ming. Her face was still as delicate and pretty as before, but the vicissitudes of life had been engraved on her face. Sometimes, a person's face could be seen from their complexion. Ding Wenhe and Ding Ming were the same. They traveled from the Shang Kingdom to the Holy Grail Federation. During this time, they must have suffered a lot and paid a great price. The two of them looked at each other silently. Slowly, a knowing smile appeared on each other's faces, but their eyes suddenly turned red. "You're finally back." Ding Wenhe spoke first. Ding Ming shook his head helplessly. 10 years have passed, and I still haven't been able to go back. His eldest brother, the princess, and he had made a promise of 6 years, but he was still in the Holy Grail Federation. He couldn't go back even if he wanted to. Ding Wenhe stared at him. "It's not your fault." Ding Ming asked, "What about my eldest brother and the princess? Are they okay?" "The army of the Tsangming Kingdom has retreated. Madam, you died on the front lines. My eldest brother's whereabouts are unknown," Ding Wenhe said calmly. Ding Ming clenched his fists. Yu Xingyang died in the celestial heaven's gate for him, but Long Yao also died on the battlefield because of the oath. Ding Wenhe said, "The 6 years have passed. The princess used the Holy Spirit to open the portal. She asked me to come and find you. We all believe that you are still alive and that you will come back." The simple words and sonorous tone made Ding Ming's eyes turn moist. Their trust and feelings for him were not as simple as a hero's knife. Ding Wenhe suddenly smiled and put her hand on his shoulder. "You and I are reunited. Why are you crying? This is not like the old you." Ding Ming couldn't help but smile. "Sister, when did you come here?" Ding Wenhe said, "The day the transit string announced her death, I was at the square of the Starry Rainbow group." Ding Ming was surprised. "You know about the transit string?" Ding Wenhe smiled. "I know everything about your past. In the past 7 years, I have investigated all the places you have been and all the things you have done." Ding Ming also smiled. "This is your usual style." Ding Wenhe let out a long sigh, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. "Fortunately, you came back in time. Where did you fly the expedition to during the war?" Ding Ming also sighed. "This is a long story. You will know in the future." Ding Wenhe looked at him, her eyes flashing with slyness. "Look at you in such a hurry. Is the first thing you came here to find someone?" Ding Ming smiled bitterly. "Of course, I didn't expect you to be here, but I heard about Misty on my way here." Ding Wenhe's expression became serious. "This world is not like our Shang Kingdom. However, the Lang family's mansion was located at the best location at the top of the mountain." Ding Ming asked, "Why should I go there?" Ding Wenhe said, "By Qing Yun and Dai Yi's engagement ceremony is not a small matter. Almost all the famous people in the Federation have been invited. They will arrive in Blue Pole Star City one after another in the next few days. With the Bai family's reputation, they have invited many people. I don't know the specific list, but I know that Starbao Corporation will not sit still." Ding Ming remembered Li Yu's hint. "Is Bai Nanjing the vice president of Starbao Corporation?" Ding Wenhe said meaningfully, "This Bai Nanjing is not simple. It is said that he is the right-hand man of Ling Xingwen. The headquarters of Starbao Corporation will send a group of related people to Blue Pole Star City in advance." She paused and said word by word, "Su Mengqing is among them." Ding Ming's eyes lit up. To find out the cause of Fong Jinghao's death, Su Mengqing was the most direct and effective way. Ding Wenhe said, "However, With the power of the Bai family and Starbao Corporation, the security at East Star Mountain is probably unprecedentedly strict. It will be difficult for you to sneak in, but if you force your way in, I'm afraid things will get worse. Ding Meng sighed. That's true. Dingwen has smiled. Do you know who is the most unpopular person in the entire Federation about this marriage of the Bai family? Ding Meng smiled bitterly. Probably me? Ding Wenhe shook his head. Not you, but Shenghao Corporation. Ding Meng was surprised. What? Ding Wenhe explained. Shenghao Corporation and Starbao Corporation have always been rivals. The Bai family and Starbao Corporation are inextricably linked, and the Bai family has had direct conflicts with Shenghao Corporation several times. Of course, out of courtesy, the Bai family still sent an invitation to Shenghao Corporation's Blue Moon branch. I heard that Shenghao Corporation ignored it, but I think you should find a way to get this invitation. Ding Meng smiled bitterly. This is more difficult than anything else. I want to snatch it, but I don't know where to go. Dingwen has smiled. Just stay in the Research Institute. Someone will take you there. Chapter 604. According to Ding Wenhe's instructions, Ding Meng spent the next few days quietly staying in the Research Institute. This was a rare chance for him to have some leisure time. Yao Manren naturally had a censor cabin here. Ding Meng, who had nothing to do, also went in and practiced martial arts for a few days. It was not until the evening of the third day that the sound of a booster could be heard from the courtyard outside. Obviously, someone had arrived. It was a Mystic Bird miniature transport ship that landed. A woman in a black cloak walked down from the ship. She had a heroic aura and a valiant figure, just like a ghost walking in the dark night. However, she still politely shouted at the entrance, "Excuse me, is anyone here?" Ding Meng opened the censor cabin's fan and said, "Long time no see." The woman was stunned. It was not until Ding Meng walked out of the censor cabin and walked to the center of the brightly lit hall that she revealed an incredulous expression. "Ding, Mr. Ting, am I dreaming?" Ding Meng smiled and said, "Sister Yin, long time no see." The person who came was actually Meng Yin. Meng Yin could not believe her eyes. Her voice was trembling. "Mr. Ting, is that really you?" Ding Meng gently raised a hand. The metal equipment on the workbenches in the hall automatically floated into the air. This was Ding Meng's unique applied psychokinesis. Meng Yin had seen it before. This was definitely Ding Meng himself. At this moment, Meng Yin ran over with large strides. Her eyes were wet and her voice was choked with sobs. "Mr. Ting, I thought that I would never be fated with you in this life. I often think of you and miss you very much. I never thought that I would be able to serve you in this lifetime." As she spoke, she looked like she was about to kneel on the ground. Among Ding Meng's friends, she was the one who was most grateful to Ding Meng. This was because Ding Meng had given her a new life and saved so many people on planet Poison Hazard. She was also the one who admired Ding Meng the most. Not everyone had the courage and drive to drive the expedition into the wormhole. "What are you doing?" Ding Meng hurriedly supported her. "I didn't expect that the person Big Sister wanted me to wait for was you." "Mr. Ting's big sister?" Meng Yin asked doubtfully. Ding Meng frowned. "Big Sister Wenhe, you don't know?" Meng Yin's expression was very blank. "I don't know. A few days ago, I received a mysterious message in the bounty hunter system on the darknet. The employer asked me to go to Shanghao Group to get the Bai family's invitation letter and send it here. The reward is that I can meet the person I want to meet the most." Her words contained a lot of information. Meng Yin was actually accepting a bounty mission. Ding Meng could not help but be a little surprised. "Big Sister Yin, you actually accepted a mission on the darknet?" Meng Yin's expression was a little unnatural. Meng Yin smiled bitterly. "At that time, no one thought that you were still alive. Even I didn't think that way. Actually, those large corporations and mercenary corps are sometimes the same. Benefits always come first." Ding Meng said coldly, "I can understand the Starlight Corporation's actions, but there's one thing they shouldn't have done." Seeing his expression, Meng Yin also knew that something was wrong. "I know a little about Commander Fong. Ding Meng looked straight at her. Sister Yin, when it comes to gathering information, you're the best candidate in my mind. Meng Yin sighed. Fang Jinghao was an upright and heroic person. He also had many friends in the Federation. From what I know, one of his trusted friends invited him out, so he went. It was during that trip that he died in the Zyrtl star field. This matter couldn't be hidden from many people who knew about it. The Starlight Corporation didn't deal with the murderer impartially. Ding Meng said, Gulag and Slayman were beaten up. What happened? Meng Yan's face became expressionless. Not only were they beaten up, but their origin foundation was also crippled. They were sent to an exile planet outside the Empire and are not allowed to return. Ding Meng sighed. Looks like Yu Liang and the others hid these things from me. Meng Yin smiled bitterly. If it were me, I wouldn't dare to tell the truth either. The Federation's by family and the Starlight Corporation. Who would dare to offend these two gods? Fortunately, Mr. Ting, you're back now. These problems can be solved. Ding Meng sneered. It's not that these problems can be solved. I'm going to deal with them. Since they don't treat us as humans, I'm going to treat them as weeds. Meng Yan's eyes were filled with worry. She reminded him tactfully, Mr. Ting, the Starlight Corporation used to treat you as an honored guest and treated you well. I know. Ding Meng saw through these things very clearly. That's because they knew I had value in the past. Now that I'm dead, they don't think I'm that important anymore. Commander Fong and the others can kill me at will. Captain Slayman and the others can cripple me at will. And the refugees can humiliate me at will. As he said this, Ding Meng's gaze fell on the workbench at the side. An alloy cutter flew up on its own and slowly landed in his hand. Ding Meng gently opened his palm. This cutter that could cut through 256 yuan alloy turned into a ball of blue molten steel in a few seconds. In the end, it turned into a wisp of green smoke. Meng Yin raised her head in shock. Ding Meng was already a combat master back then. However, this method was definitely not something a combat master could possess. Since he could melt 256 yuan alloy, it meant that the heat source energy Ding Meng cultivated could reach a temperature of at least 100,000 degrees Celsius. Meng Yin had never seen this level of heat before. She could not even imagine it. Meng Yin was shocked. Ding Meng suddenly remembered that Yongbang was also one of Dai Yi's suitors. Now that the goddess was going to hold the engagement ceremony, it was a pity that the groom was not him. Naturally, he would not be happy. Yongbang, don't frown. Since you're already here, let's drink. Mu Hua raised her glass. Dongfang Lian also persuaded, yes, Yongbang. After so many years, you still can't forget Miss Dai Yi? You're really infatuated with her. Yongbang raised his head and drank the champagne in his glass. He could not help but sigh. Back then, I really thought that the refugee called Ding Meng was lucky. I didn't expect. Mu Hua comforted him. This is called fate. If it's not meant to be, then it's not meant to be. If it's not meant to be, then it's not meant to be. The result has long been predestined. Yongbang's expression was ugly. He gritted his teeth and said, it's not predestined. Bai Qingyun is also not a good person. He has a wife and is now taking in a second wife. Moreover, that guy often went whoring outside when he was in Starlight. Moreover, he did it for free. Shoo! Mu Hua and Dongfang Lian were quite frightened. They looked around and whispered, Brother, it's fine if it's normal times, but don't talk nonsense here. F***CK. I was beaten up and you don't allow me to talk? Yongbang was not convinced. You were beaten up? Who beat you up? Dongfang Lian was curious. Yongbang said angrily, my dad beat me up. Mu Hua was also curious. Why'd he beat you up? Yongbang said, back then, when that Ding Meng disappeared, I thought that my chance had come. In the end, I was warned by my dad not to have any ideas about Miss Dai. He said that she was about to become someone else's fiancée. Mu Hua smiled and said, if it were my dad, he would probably beat me up too. The person you're chasing is not Miss Dai, but Madame Bai. Mother asterisk her. Yongbang was quite angry. The Dai family is also useless. What's the difference between this and selling their daughter? Mu Hua smiled and said, don't be unconvinced. At least they found a good buyer. If you were to marry a pig from the Bai family, you would probably think that you're not fast enough. Yongbang was very angry. I'm sincere about Miss Dai. Understood. Mu Hua rolled her eyes. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come here to take one last look at your sweetheart. Am I right, Yongbang? Dongfang Lian hurriedly said, there's nothing to see about Miss Dai. I heard that a few famous stars will be here tonight. Mu Hua was curious. Oh, there's still a few days before the engagement party starts. The entertainment industry is coming early? Dongfang Lian said proudly. Of course, the Bai family has this card. Mu Hua said, which stars? Dongfang Lian said, Su Mengqing, Qin Zhongyi, Yi Jingyan, and Long Qi. Mu Hua seemed to understand. Aren't they the Star Rainbow, Tianheng, Hongyue, and Zhengxing, 5 great families? These 3 celebrities had one thing in common, and that was the large amount of people following behind them. All of them were origin ability users at the combat master level. However, what made Ding Meng surprised was that although Yi Jingyan looked well-behaved and gentle, her body emitted a faint trace of biochemical energy. The corner of Ding Meng's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. She actually has such good control over her aura. This is a bit interesting. The welcome banquet was arranged in Villa No. 1. This was an exceptionally luxurious and elegant white hall. It was divided into 3 floors. The place was very spacious. The banquet was also carried out in the form of a buffet, allowing everyone to walk around. Although eating didn't depend on fame or status, the crowd still spontaneously divided themselves into different levels. Several celebrities were naturally invited to a booth in the middle of the 3rd floor. From this position, one could overlook the entire hall. The 1st and 2nd floors were mostly filled with youngsters, but there was a very eye-catching existence in the hall. Su Mengqing quickly noticed that at the southern side of the hall, there was actually only a young man sitting there alone. The surrounding crowd seemed to be very far away from him, as if they were afraid of getting too close to him. This person seemed to have a plague attribute. The strangest thing was that this person didn't order any drinks or snacks. Instead, he ordered a bowl of clear water noodles and picked at them one by one. Su Mengqing was an experienced and knowledgeable person. When she saw this scene, she knew that there must be a reason behind it. She turned her head and asked, Hong Yi, what's going on? The female bodyguard wearing sunglasses immediately stepped forward and bowed her head. Miss Su, this person is the representative sent by Sheng Hao. His name is Sheng Tianming. It is said that he is from outer space. She tried her best to be brief and tactful, but everyone present understood that Sheng Hao, the Bai family, and Xing Hong were not on good terms. Not only did they send an agent, but this person actually had the face to stay here and refused to leave. No wonder the crowd around him despised him. Sheng Tianming. Su Mengqing frowned slightly. She had actually met many representatives of Sheng Hao Group. How come I've never heard of this person? Qin Zhongyi smiled and said, it's already good that someone from Sheng Hao Group came. Naturally, it's impossible for a celebrity that everyone knows to come. Her words made by Nan Hao, who was next to her, lose face. After all, Ding Meng was a guest. As the host, he couldn't go down and drive the guest away. However, Ding Meng didn't leave and ordered a bowl of noodles to eat. He didn't know whether Ding Meng did it on purpose or to provoke him. Several big stars were good at reading people's expressions. They knew that this kind of thing could be big or small, but was really not easy to deal with. Su Mengqing suddenly smiled and said, Boss Bai Nanzheng is also a senior executive of Xing Hong. Xing Hong and the Bai family are family. Let me go down. Bai Nanhao hurriedly said, Miss Su's body is precious. You should enjoy the banquet. How can we trouble you? Su Mengqing smiled and said, it's okay. Boss Bai, you are too polite. It's just a matter of duty. There were many young men and women in the hall on the first floor. But as the gorgeous Su Mengqing walked down the escalator, everyone's eyes naturally gathered on her body. "Hello, may I sit here?" Su Mengqing came to the opposite side of Ding Meng and asked with a sweet and enchanting voice. But unfortunately, Ding Meng didn't even look at her. "Sit." Su Mengqing had always been very confident in her own charm, but Ding Meng's cold attitude suddenly messed up the words she had prepared. At this time, the role of a bodyguard was highlighted. Han Yi took 2 steps forward and said, "Hello, Mr. Shang. I hope you can take the initiative to leave after dinner. Thank you for your cooperation." Ding Meng put down his chopsticks and raised his head to look at her. For some reason, Han Yi's heart skipped a beat when he looked at her. It was the kind of clear and cold gaze that only experts could have. But the person in front of her clearly didn't have a trace of origin energy aura. He was clearly an ordinary person. She didn't know that Ding Meng's control of origin energy had reached perfection after the Diamond Star secret art had constructed 10 origins. People who weren't at the same level as him wouldn't be able to see any clues at all. Aura fluctuations were sometimes like a person's breathing. Breathing was the most difficult to control. No matter how careful you were, if you gently exhaled, it would be perceived by others, and they could immediately analyze your strength. The so-called suppression of rank was based on the same principle. A warrior would probably feel as uncomfortable as suffocating if he or she were to look at an ordinary warrior. However, Ding Meng's control over origin energy had reached the point where he or she could stop breathing without any problems. Ding Meng suddenly said, "Your surname is Bai?" Han Yi was stunned. "My surname is not Bai." Ding Meng said, "If your surname isn't Bai, then why are you saying all this nonsense?" Han Yi was speechless because Ding Meng's words were crude but reasonable. The host hadn't even said anything, yet he was trying to drive her away. Who was he? What right did he have? Han Yi was about to step forward, but she was dissuaded by Su Mengqing's gaze. Su Mengqing's gaze meant that she couldn't be reckless in this place. The effect of persuading her away was far greater than the consequences. Su Mengqing revealed a generous and charming smile. "Hello, Mr. Shang. It's an honor to meet you." She spoke very skillfully.